The first thing I noticed when I woke up wasn't the beeping machines or the tube down my throat. It was my stepmother Patricia sitting in the visitor's chair, wearing my grandmother's emerald ring. My grandmother's ring. The one she'd pressed into my palm before she died, whispering, "This stays with blood, Natalie. Promise me." I must have made a sound because Patricia looked up from her phone, her face cycling through surprise, annoyance, and finally settling on fake concern. "Oh, you're awake." She stood, not to call a nurse, but to gather her things. I'll go get your father." The ring caught the light as she moved. My ring, my grandmother's ring, on her perfectly manicured hand like it belonged there. I tried to speak, but the ventilator wouldn't let me. My last memory was clear though. The tree falling toward Dad during the storm, me shoving him out of the way. The sickening crack as it pinned me instead. 3 months, the nurses told me later. I'd been in a coma for 3 months. Dad arrived an hour later, and I knew immediately something was wrong beyond the ring. He wouldn't meet my eyes, kept fidgeting with his phone, looked older but also guilty. "Natalie," he said carefully, like I might break. "How are you feeling?" I gestured weakly at the ventilator. Obviously, I couldn't answer. "Right, of course. The doctors say it can come out tomorrow." He sat down, still not looking at me directly. There's something we need to discuss, about your grandmother's estate." My heart monitor spiked. The nurse had removed the breathing tube that morning, but my throat was too raw to speak above a whisper. I managed one word. "What?" He finally looked at me then, and I saw it all in his eyes. The betrayal he was about to confess. The justification he'd already built in his mind. "Your sister was here every day," he started. Stepsister. Lauren was Patricia's daughter from her first marriage. We'd never been close. She'd been 20 when Dad married Patricia 5 years ago, already out of college and working at Patricia's real estate firm. She treated our father's house like a hotel and me like the staff. Every single day, he continued. While you were unconscious, she held vigils. She organized meal trains for Patricia and me. She handled things. "The ring," I whispered. His face flushed. "Your grandmother's estate was distributed 2 months ago. We couldn't wait. There were tax implications. And you were," he gestured vaguely at the hospital bed. "Lauren needed the money for her wedding. You know how expensive." "All of it." My voice cracked. Silence. "Dad, all of it." He stood abruptly. "Family is about showing up, Natalie. Lauren showed up. You weren't available. I was in a coma, saving your life. That's not. You don't understand how hard these 3 months have been. Patricia's been beside herself. Lauren's been our rock. We needed to make decisions. You gave her my inheritance. She's family too," he snapped, then caught himself. "Look, when you're feeling better, we can discuss some kind of arrangement. Maybe Lauren would be willing to." "Get out." "Natalie." I reached for the nurse's call button, pressed it repeatedly. "Get out." The nurse who responded took one look at my face, my vitals spiking dangerously, and ushered him from the room. "Sir, you need to leave. Now." As the door closed behind him, I heard him tell Patricia in the hallway, "She's being unreasonable. After everything Lauren's done. Everything Lauren had done. While I was fighting for my life because I'd saved his." The next days blurred together. Physical therapy, breathing exercises, learning to walk again. But my mind was sharp, focused on one thing, the complete betrayal by the man I'd nearly died protecting. My best friend Vera flew in from Seattle the moment she heard I was awake. She was the one who filled in the blanks, showing me Lauren's social media posts from the past 3 months. "Look at this," Vera said, scrolling through Lauren's Instagram. She documented every single hospital visit like she was gunning for sainthood. The posts were nauseating. Lauren posing with prayer hands outside the ICU. Lauren bringing my father coffee with captions about staying strong for family. Lauren wearing designer outfits to her vigils, which seemed to last exactly long enough for a photo op. But one post made my blood run cold. It was from 6 weeks ago, Lauren at the lawyer's office, signing papers. The caption read, "Blessed to be trusted with carrying on Grandma Ellen's legacy. #family first, #grateful heart." She called my grandmother Grandma Ellen. My grandmother, who barely tolerated Patricia and actively disliked Lauren after she tried to have Grandma declared incompetent to manage her own finances. "There's more," Vera said quietly. She pulled up a wedding planning website, Lauren's Wedding Registry. The requested cash gifts started at $500. Look at the venue, Vera continued. I looked, my stomach dropped. That's Grandma's house. Not anymore. According to property records, it was sold 8 weeks ago to a development company. They'd sold my grandmother's house. The house where I'd spent every summer, where she taught me to bake, where she'd built her art studio in the backyard. The house she'd specifically left to me because she knew I'd preserve it, not flip it for profit. How? I whispered. The will. That's the thing, Vera said. I did some digging. Your dad had power of attorney while you were incapacitated. He used it to accept the inheritance on your behalf, then immediately transferred everything to Lauren as a gift. Legally gray, but technically possible. How much? I asked, though I already knew it would hurt. The house sold for $2.8 million. The cash assets were another $1.2 million. Plus the jewelry, the art collection. $4 million, I finished. He gave Lauren $4 million while I was in a coma from saving his life. Vera held my hand while I processed this. $4 million. My grandmother's entire life's work meant to secure my future, fund the art therapy nonprofit I dreamed of starting. Gone. Financing Lauren's designer wedding and Patricia's new Mercedes. What do you want to do? Vera asked. I looked at her, really looked at her. Vera, who'd flown across the country the moment she heard I was awake, who'd spent hours researching what had happened, who'd brought me real food instead of hospital jello and sat through my physical therapy sessions. I want to make a call, I said. The law firm of Chen and Associates specialized in elder law and estate disputes. Mr. Chen himself came to the hospital after reviewing the documents Vera had gathered. This is unconscionable, he said flatly. Using power of attorney to circumvent a will's clear intentions while you were in a medically induced coma. After you were injured saving his life, we have a case. I don't want to sue my father, I said. You're not, Mr. Chen corrected. You're suing to recover stolen assets. Your father made himself complicit, but the target is the recipient of the fraudulent transfer. Lauren, my stepsister who performed hospital visits for Instagram likes while helping steal my inheritance. There's something else, Mr. Chen added. The house sale. It wasn't arm's length. The development company is owned by Patricia's brother. They undervalued it by at least $800,000. Of course they did. The next morning, a different nurse brought my breakfast tray with an odd expression. There's a woman here claiming to be your sister. Should I let her in? No, I said firmly. I don't have a sister. But Lauren didn't take no for an answer. I heard her in the hallway, voice pitched high with indignation. I've been here every single day for 3 months. I have a right to see her. Ma'am, the patient has declined visitors. This is ridiculous, after everything I've done. The vigils, the prayers, the theft. I called out loud enough to carry. You can add that to your list, Lauren. Silence, then the click of heels retreating rapidly down the hallway. That afternoon, Dad returned with Patricia. The nurse tried to stop them, but I waved her off. I wanted to hear their justification. Patricia spoke first, clutching her purse like a shield. Natalie, sweetheart, you have to understand. We thought you might never wake up. The doctors said. I was in a medically induced coma, I interrupted. Not brain dead. The doctors were optimistic about recovery. I have the medical records. But the estate needed to be handled, Dad said. Taxes. Were due in 18 months, I finished. I looked it up. You had a year and a half to wait. Lauren needed. To steal from an unconscious woman? Yes, apparently she did. Patricia's face hardened, the mask slipping. She's getting married. Do you know how much weddings cost these days, and with the market? With the market, Grandma's house was worth nearly $3 million. You sold it for $2 million. They exchanged glances. Caught. To your brother, Patricia, who's already filed permits to tear it down and build condos. That house was falling apart, Patricia said defensively. The maintenance alone was my responsibility, my inheritance, my choice. Dad stepped forward. Natalie, be reasonable. Lauren's your sister. Stepsister. And she's nothing to me now. Neither are you. The words hung in the air like a blade. I nearly died saving your life. I continued, my voice steady despite the tears threatening. I shoved you out of the way of a falling tree. I took the hit, and while I was fighting to breathe, you let them rob me. We didn't rob. Get out. I pressed the nurse's button. And know this, I've already hired a lawyer. Every penny Lauren took will be returned, or I'll see her in court. The house sale will be challenged. The jewelry will be recovered. All of it. Patricia laughed, sharp and bitter. You can't prove anything. It was all legal. Your father had every right. To violate his fiduciary duty, to commit fraud, to transfer assets in clear contradiction of the will's intent. I smiled coldly. My lawyer disagrees. So does the forensic accountant who's already found the paper trail. Dad's face had gone gray. Forensic accountant. Oh yes. Turns out that when you rush to steal $4 million, you leave tracks. Like Lauren's wedding planner payments starting 2 days after I entered the ICU. Or the house listing going up while I was still critical. Or Patricia's new car purchase the day after the estate closed. You're destroying this family, Dad said quietly. No, I replied, you destroyed it the moment you chose greed over your daughter's life. Security arrived to escort them out. As they left, Patricia turned back one last time. That ring was too good for you anyway. Lauren wears it better. I smiled. Tell Lauren to enjoy it while she can. The police take a dim view of receiving stolen property over $50,000. Patricia's face went white. They'd forgotten that Grandma's ring had been appraised. That I have records, that their greed had made them sloppy. The lawsuit was filed within the week. Lauren tried to play victim on social media, posting about how I was attacking the family that supported me. But the comments weren't what she expected. Turns out, people have opinions about stealing from coma patients. Someone leaked the story to a local news station. Woman has inheritance stolen while in coma after saving father's life, made for compelling television. Lauren's wedding venue canceled her booking after the bad publicity. Vendors pulled out. Her grand $500,000 wedding became a courthouse ceremony with no guests. Even Patricia's family distanced themselves once the fraud investigation began. It took 8 months, but we won. The judge's ruling was scathing. Words like unconscionable, predatory, and breach of fiduciary duty featured heavily. Lauren was ordered to return every penny, plus interest and legal fees. The house sale was voided due to the conflict of interest and undervaluation. Patricia's brother faced his own legal troubles. Dad tried calling once, after the ruling. I didn't answer, but he left a voicemail. Your grandmother would be ashamed of you for tearing apart this family. I saved that voicemail. Sometimes when I doubt myself, I listen to it. It reminds me that he still doesn't understand. Grandma would have been ashamed of him for choosing his new wife's daughter over his own, for letting greed override love, for betraying the daughter who'd nearly died saving him. I recovered fully, eventually. The physical therapy worked. The scars faded. I even started the art therapy nonprofit I dreamed of, funded by the inheritance that was rightfully mine. The building sits on the lot where Grandma's house used to stand. I couldn't save the original structure. Patricia's brother had already done too much damage, but I rebuilt something better. A place where kids could learn art like I had in Grandma's studio, where healing happened through creation. I named it after her, the Ellen Hartley Center for Arts and Recovery. Lauren sent a letter once, asking if we could move past this. She was getting divorced, apparently. Her husband hadn't signed up for the debt and legal troubles. She needed help. I sent back a photo of the center's opening day. Kids painting in the sunshine where Grandma's garden used to be. The emerald ring, recovered by court order, on my hand as I cut the ribbon. No other message was needed. Family isn't about showing up for photos at the hospital. It's not about counting visits or performing grief for social media. It's not about being there when it's convenient or profitable. It's about love when it costs you something. It's about protection when you're vulnerable. It's about trust when you can't protect yourself. I learned that the hard way, unconscious in a hospital bed while vultures circled. But I also learned that blood doesn't always mean family, and family doesn't always mean blood. The kids at the center call me Aunt Nat now. They hug me with paint-covered hands and show me their art with shining eyes. They trust me to keep them safe while they create. That's family. That's showing up. And that's worth more than $4 million. Though I'm glad I got that back too.
The tech conference after party was in full swing, the air thick with the scent of expensive champagne and idle chatter. As I made my way through the crowd, glass of rosé in hand, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. My eyes scanned the room. searching for my husband, Rowan, who had drifted away moments earlier. That's when I saw them. Rowan, in a dimly lit corner, laughing intimately with a woman I didn't recognize. My heart stopped, and a tightness gripped my chest. I knew Rowan, and this wasn't normal. Steeling myself, I drew closer, straining to hear their hushed conversation. June, I can't wait for us to start our new life together. That house we looked at is perfect. Just wait until Lila finds out. Rowan's words sent a shockwave through me. A new house? With this woman? My mind raced as I tried to make sense of what I was hearing. Don't worry, darling. Once the money from your little embezzlement scheme clears, we'll be set. Lila will be none the wiser, June purred, her hand trailing along Rowan's arm. Embezzlement? My head spun as the pieces fell into place. Rowan, my loving husband, the father of my children, had been betraying me all this time. Rage and betrayal surged through me, threatening to consume me. I cleared my throat, causing them to jump in surprise. Rowan, June, what a pleasant surprise. Rowan's face drained of color as he stumbled to find the right words. Lila, this isn't what it looks like. Isn't it? I fired back, my voice dripping with venom. Because it looks like you're planning to run off with this woman, using money you stole from my company. June's eyes narrowed, a sly smile playing on her lips. Oh, Rowan, you didn't tell your dear wife about our little arrangement? Rowan shot June a pleading look, but she seemed to relish in his discomfort. Lila, please, let me explain. Explain what, Rowan? I cut him off, my hands trembling with a mix of rage and heartbreak. How you've been betraying me, our family, and everything I've built. No, I don't want to hear it. I turned on my heel, determined to put as much distance between myself and this train wreck as possible. But Rowan's hand shot out, grasping my arm. Lila, wait. Please, let's talk about this. I can fix this, I promise. I yanked my arm free, glaring at him with a fury I hadn't known I possessed. Fix it? How, Rowan? By running off with your mistress and my money? I scoffed, the words burning my tongue. No, I'm done. We're done. I want a divorce. With that, I stormed away, leaving Rowan and June in my wake, their shocked expressions searing into my memory. As I made my way out of the conference center, my vision blurred with tears of betrayal and rage. How could he do this to me, to our family? The drive home was a blur of my mind racing with 1,000 questions and 1,000 more answers I didn't want to confront. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I had made up my mind. I was going to fight. I was going to take back everything Rowan had stolen from me, starting with my company and my life. The drive home from the tech conference felt like an eternity. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, betrayal, a desperate need for answers. How could Rowan do this to me? To our family? The image of him with that woman, June, plotting to run off with my money, burned in my mind, searing into my very soul. As I pulled into the driveway, I sat in the car for a long moment, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I had to get a handle on this, to channel my fury into action. Lila Blackwood didn't back down, not from anyone, especially not her own husband. With a deep breath, I marched into the house, my footsteps echoing with determination. I found Rowan in the living room, pacing anxiously, his face a picture of guilt and panic. Lila, thank God you're back. We need to talk about what you heard. I held up a hand, cutting him off. Save it, Rowan. I don't want to hear your pathetic excuses. My voice was calm, but my eyes burned with barely contained rage. I want the truth. Everything. Rowan's shoulders slumped, and he sank into the couch, running a hand through his hair. It started a few months ago. I got in over my head with some gambling debts, and I needed money fast. So I started skimming from your company accounts. Just a little at first, but then it spiraled out of control. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. And June, how does she fit into all this? June, she was someone I met at the casino. She saw an opportunity to get in on the money, and we started planning to run off together. I'm sorry, Lila. I never meant for any of this to happen. Sorry? I scoffed, the word dripping with contempt. You're sorry? Rowan, you've betrayed me, our family, and everything I've built. Do you have any idea what this could do to my company? Rowan's eyes widened in panic. Lila, please, you can't tell anyone. I'll pay it all back, I swear. Just give me some time. I shook my head, my resolve hardening. No, Rowan. You've had your chance and you blew it. I'm filing for divorce, and I'm going to make sure you pay for what you've done. Divorce? Lila, you can't be serious. Rowan surged to his feet, desperation etched in every line of his face. Think of the kids. Think of everything we've built together. I am thinking of the kids, Rowan, I replied, my voice cutting like ice. I'm thinking of the life you've stolen from them, the stability you've destroyed. And as for everything we've built, well, you've made it very clear that it means nothing to you. I turned to leave, pausing only to glare at him over my shoulder. This is your mess, Rowan. Clean it up, because if you don't, I will, and you won't like the consequences. With that, I strode out of the room, my mind already racing with 1,000 plans to untangle the web of deceit Rowan had woven. I would not go down without a fight. I would reclaim what was mine, no matter the cost. The moment I stepped into my office, a sense of purpose and determination washed over me. Rowan's betrayal had shattered my world, but I refused to let him win. This was my life, my company, and I would be damned if I let him destroy everything I'd built. I quickly called a meeting with the executive team, Marco, my trusted CFO, and Clara, my longtime mentor and closest confidante. As they gathered around the conference table, I could see the concern etched on their faces. Lila, what's going on? Marco asked, his brow furrowed. I heard the rumors about you and Rowan, but I wanted to hear it from you. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the difficult conversation ahead. Rowan has been embezzling money from the company. He's been using it to fund a gambling addiction and to set up a new life with his mistress. Clara's eyes widened in shock, while Marco's face darkened with fury. That bastard, he growled. How much has he taken? I'm not sure yet, I admitted, but I need you both to help me get to the bottom of this. I want a full forensic audit of the company financials, and I want it done yesterday. Consider it done, Marco said, already pulling out his phone to assemble the team. And that's not all. I turned to Clara, my gaze unwavering. I need your help navigating the legal minefield. I'm filing for divorce, and I want to make sure Rowan pays for what he's done. Clara reached across the table, giving my hand a reassuring squeeze. Of course, Lila. I'll put my best people on it. We'll make sure he doesn't get away with this. As the meeting adjourned, I felt a newfound sense of purpose. Rowan may have betrayed me, but I wasn't going down without a fight. I was going to take back control of my life, my company, and my future. Over the next few days, I worked tirelessly with Marco and his team, digging deeper into the company's finances. The numbers were staggering. Rowan had siphoned off millions, all while living a lavish lifestyle with his mistress. The rage I felt only fueled my determination. Concurrently, Clara's legal team sprung into action, freezing Rowan's assets and preparing for a messy divorce battle. They uncovered even more of Rowan's deceit, including debts he had racked up in my name. It was infuriating, but I was grateful to have such a capable team fighting in my corner. As the legal proceedings began, Rowan grew increasingly desperate, lashing out with threats and attempts at manipulation, but I refused to back down. I had spent years building my company, my reputation, and my life. I wasn't about to let Rowan destroy it all. You'll regret this, Lila, he snarled during one particularly heated exchange. I'll make sure you and the kids lose everything. I met his gaze, unflinching. I don't think so, Rowan. You're the one who's going to lose everything. Your money, your freedom, your family. This is my life, and I'm taking it back. With that, I turned and walked away, my steps filled with a newfound confidence. I had the support of my allies, the weight of the evidence on my side, and a burning desire for justice. Rowan may have thought he could outsmart me, but he was about to learn a hard lesson. You don't mess with Lila Blackwood. As the legal battle with Rowan raged on, I was grateful to have a strong support system in my corner. Marco, my loyal CFO and friend, had been instrumental in unraveling the financial web Rowan had woven. He worked tirelessly, poring over every transaction, every account, to piece together the full extent of the embezzlement. And then there was Clara, my trusted mentor and confidant. Her legal team was a force to be reckoned with, navigating the treacherous waters of the divorce proceedings with a skill that left Rowan's lawyers floundering. They uncovered even more of Rowan's deception, from hidden assets to fraudulent loans taken out in my name. This is a mess, Lila, Clara said during one of our strategy sessions. But we're going to make sure Rowan pays for what he's done. I promise you that. I nodded, feeling a surge of gratitude and determination. I know, Clara. I couldn't do this without you and Marco. You two have been my rocks through all of this. Clara reached across the table, giving my hand a gentle squeeze. That's what family is for. We're in this together, Lila. All the way. I smiled, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. With Clara and Marco by my side, I knew I could face anything Rowan threw at me. But Rowan, it seemed, was not one to go down without a fight. As the proceedings dragged on, his desperation became more and more apparent. He resorted to threats, trying to intimidate me into backing down. You think you can just take everything from me? He snarled during one particularly heated exchange. I won't let you, Lila. I'll make sure you and the kids suffer for this. I held my ground, refusing to be cowed by his empty threats. The only one who's going to suffer is you, Rowan. You brought this on yourself. Now you're going to face the consequences. Rowan's face contorted with rage, and for a moment I saw a glimpse of the man I thought I knew, the man I had loved and trusted. But that man was long gone, replaced by a desperate, greedy individual who had betrayed everything we'd built together. As the legal proceedings continued, Rowan's behavior only grew more erratic. He lashed out at my allies, threatening Marco and even going so far as to confront Clara in her own office. You're all a bunch of vultures, circling around to pick at the scraps of my life, he shouted, his face twisted with fury. I won't let you take everything from me. Clara, ever the picture of composure, simply regarded him with a cool, steady gaze. The only person taking anything from you, Rowan, is you. You've done this to yourself, and now you're going to pay the price. Rowan's shoulders slumped, the fight seeming to drain from him. But I knew better than to let my guard down. This was a man who had shown himself capable of the most despicable betrayals, and I couldn't afford to underestimate him. As I left Clara's office, I couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. Rowan was a wounded animal, and wounded animals were the most dangerous. I knew that the final showdown was still to come, and I had to be ready for anything. As the legal battle with Rowan dragged on, I knew I had to take matters into my own hands. The constant threats, the whispers of his crimes, and the strain it was putting on my company and my family, it was becoming too much to bear. That's when I decided to go on the offensive. With the help of my trusted friend and PR maven, Samantha, I crafted a carefully orchestrated plan to expose Rowan's misdeeds to the world. It's time to shift the narrative, Lila, Samantha said, her eyes gleaming with determination. Let's take control of the story before Rowan can spin it to his advantage. I nodded, my resolve hardening. I'm ready. Whatever it takes to bring him down and protect my company and my family. Over the next few weeks, Samantha worked tirelessly, using her extensive network of media contacts to plant the seeds of Rowan's downfall. She fed juicy tidbits to the tech press, hinting at the scandal brewing behind the scenes, the embezzlement, the gambling, the mistress. It didn't take long for the story to pick up steam. Soon, headlines were blaring, and the public was clamoring for more details. Rowan, who had once been a respected figure in the industry, found himself thrust into the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. When the sharks began to circle, Rowan grew increasingly desperate, lashing out at me and my allies, but we were ready for him. You think this is going to save you, Lila? He spat, his eyes wild with fury. You've only made things worse. Now the whole world knows what a conniving bitch you are. I met his gaze, unflinching. No, Rowan, the whole world knows what a despicable, greedy man you are, and they're going to watch as you pay for your sins. Rowan let out a humorless laugh. You really think you can win this? You have no idea what I'm capable of. Oh, but I do, I replied, my voice dripping with contempt, and that's why I'm going to make sure you never hurt me or my family ever again. With that, I turned and walked away, leaving Rowan seething in his own impotent rage. I knew that the worst was yet to come, but I was prepared. I had the support of my allies, the weight of the evidence on my side, and a burning desire for justice. As the media storm raged on, I continued to work tirelessly with Samantha and my legal team to ensure that Rowan's misdeeds were exposed for all to see. We leveraged every connection, every resource at our disposal, until the truth became impossible to ignore. Rowan's gambling addiction, his lavish lifestyle funded by my company's money, his betrayal of our family, it all came pouring out, a torrent of revelations that left him reeling. I watched with a grim satisfaction as his social and professional standing crumbled, his once vaunted reputation reduced to ashes. And through it all, I remained steadfast, my focus laser-sharp on the ultimate goal, reclaiming my life, my company, and my future. Rowan had taken so much from me, but I was determined to take it all back, and then some. As the final showdown in the courtroom loomed, I knew that the stakes had never been higher, but this time I was the one in control. This time, Rowan would answer for his crimes, and I would emerge victorious. The day of the final courtroom showdown had arrived, and I couldn't help but feel a surge of nervous anticipation coursing through my veins. After months of legal battles, of exposing Rowan's deceit and betrayal, this was the moment of reckoning. As I stepped into the imposing courtroom, my eyes immediately landed on Rowan, sitting hunched at the defendant's table, his once confident demeanor now tinged with desperation. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the challenge ahead, and joined my own legal team, led by the formidable Vivian. "Are you ready for this, Lila?" Vivian asked, her gaze unwavering. I nodded, my jaw set with determination. "More than ready. Let's make him pay for what he's done." The proceedings began with Vivian laying out the evidence, the meticulous paper trail of Rowan's embezzlement, the damning financial records, the testimony of those he'd wronged. With each passing moment, Rowan's face grew paler, the noose tightening around his neck. But just when I thought the case was all but won, Rowan's lawyer pulled a surprise witness, June, the woman he'd been planning to run off with. As June took the stand, her eyes darted around the courtroom, a mixture of fear and defiance etched on her face. I didn't know the full extent of Rowan's crimes," she stammered. "I only found out about the embezzlement and his gambling addiction after he dragged me into his scheme." Rowan's lawyer pounced, sensing an opportunity. "So you're telling us that my client kept you in the dark about his illegal activities?" June hesitated, her gaze flickering to where I sat. "Yes, that's right, Rowan. He lied to me, just like he lied to his wife. I had no idea what he was doing until it was too late." The courtroom erupted in a flurry of murmurs, and I felt a surge of triumph. Rowan's carefully crafted web of lies was unraveling before our eyes. Vivian wasted no time in seizing the advantage. "So, Miss June, are you telling this court that you were an unwitting accomplice in Mr. Blackwood's criminal activities?" June nodded, her voice trembling. "Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm sorry for what I've done. I never meant for any of this to happen." Rowan's face contorted with fury, and he leaped to his feet, his chair clattering to the floor. "You backstabbing bitch!" he bellowed, his eyes wild with rage. "How dare you turn against me?" The judge slammed his gavel, his voice booming through the stunned silence. "Order in the court. Mr. Blackwood, you will control yourself or be held in contempt." Rowan sank back into his seat, his shoulders slumped in defeat. I couldn't help but feel a sense of grim satisfaction wash over me. This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for, the moment Rowan would finally face the consequences of his actions. As the final arguments were presented, I watched Rowan's world crumble around him. The evidence was overwhelming, the testimonies damning. There was no escape, no way for him to wriggle out of this. And when the verdict was read, sentencing Rowan to a lengthy prison term and stripping him of his assets, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Justice had been served, and I had emerged victorious. Rowan's betrayal had been laid bare for all to see, and now he would pay the price. As I left the courtroom, I couldn't help but feel a sense of bittersweet triumph. I had won, but at what cost? The pain of Rowan's betrayal still stung, and the scars would take time to heal. But I knew that I was stronger for it, and that I was ready to start anew, to reclaim my life and my future. The verdict had come down, and Rowan's world crumbled around him. As he was led away in handcuffs, his face contorted with a mix of disbelief and rage, I couldn't help but feel a sense of grim satisfaction. "This isn't over, Lila," he shouted, his voice laced with desperation. "I'll make you pay for this, I swear." I simply regarded him with a cool, steady gaze. "No, Rowan, this is over. You've lost everything, your freedom, your money, your family, and now you're going to pay the price for your betrayal." With that, he was whisked away, the heavy courtroom doors slamming shut behind him. I let out a deep breath, feeling as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The nightmare was finally over. In the days and weeks that followed, the full extent of Rowan's downfall became painfully clear. His assets were seized, his reputation in tatters, and his once vaunted status in the tech community reduced to ashes. The media, once obsessed with his rise to power, now gleefully reported on his spectacular fall from grace. As for me, I emerged from the ordeal stronger and more determined than ever. With the help of my loyal allies, I set about the task of rebuilding my life and my company. Marco, my trusted CFO, worked tirelessly to restore the financial stability that Rowan had threatened to destroy, while Clara's legal team ensured that I retained full custody of our children and a significant portion of our joint assets. "You've come out of this a warrior, Lila," Clara said, a proud smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "Rowan thought he could break you, but you've proven him wrong. Now it's time to reclaim your life." I nodded, feeling a surge of determination. That's exactly what I intend to do. I won't let Rowan's betrayal define me. This is my chance to start fresh, to build something even better. And that's exactly what I did. With a renewed sense of purpose, I poured my energy into my company, steering it to new heights of success. I used my experiences to create a foundation dedicated to supporting and empowering other women entrepreneurs, ensuring that they never had to face the kind of betrayal and adversity that I had endured. As for Rowan, his downfall was swift and unforgiving. Stripped of his wealth and social standing, he found himself adrift, a pariah in the very community he had once dominated. Attempts to rebuild his life were met with scorn and rejection, a constant reminder of the consequences of his actions. I couldn't help but feel a twinge of pity for him, but it was quickly overshadowed by the anger and resentment that still simmered within me. Rowan had taken so much from me, and even now, as he languished in the ruins of his once gilded life, I couldn't find it in myself to forgive him. "You brought this on yourself, Rowan," I said, when he reached out to me one final time, his voice laced with desperation. "And now you have to live with the consequences." With that, I severed all ties, determined to move forward and never look back. Rowan's betrayal had changed me, but it hadn't broken me. If anything, it had forged me into a stronger, more resilient woman, one who was ready to take on the world and win. As the dust settled on the tumultuous events that had upended my life, I found myself standing at the precipice of a new chapter. Rowan's betrayal had shaken me to my core, but it had also forged me into a stronger, more resilient woman. I was determined to take back control of my life and my future, and that's exactly what I set out to do. With Rowan's assets and embezzled funds returned to me, I was able to not only stabilize my company but propel it to new heights of success. The public's sympathy was firmly on my side, and I leveraged that goodwill to secure lucrative contracts and investments. My team, led by the ever-reliable Marco, worked tirelessly to streamline operations and capitalize on the newfound momentum. "It's like a weight has been lifted off our shoulders, Lila," Marco said during one of our strategy meetings. "Now that Rowan's mess is behind us, we can focus on taking this company to the next level." I nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of my lips. "That's exactly what I intend to do, Marco. This is our chance to build something truly remarkable." And that's exactly what we did. Over the following months, I poured my energy into not only rebuilding my company, but also creating a foundation to support other women entrepreneurs. The Lila Blackwood Foundation, as it came to be known, was a passion project that allowed me to channel my experiences into empowering others who faced similar challenges. "You're an inspiration, Lila," Clara, my trusted mentor, told me during the foundation's launch event. "The way you've risen from the ashes of Rowan's betrayal is a testament to your strength and resilience." I felt a swell of pride, but also a twinge of bittersweet emotion. "It wasn't easy, Clara. Rowan's actions nearly destroyed me, but I refused to let him win. This foundation is my way of ensuring that no other woman has to go through what I did." Clara squeezed my hand, her eyes shining with pride. "And that's exactly why it's going to be a success. You've turned your pain into purpose, Lila. That's the mark of a true leader." As the foundation gained momentum, I found myself drawing strength from the women whose lives I was able to touch. Their stories of triumph over adversity, their determination to forge their own paths, it all served as a powerful reminder of why I had embarked on this journey in the first place. And then one day, as I was reviewing the Foundation's latest initiatives, I received an unexpected call. It was Rowan, his voice tinged with desperation. "Lila, please, you have to help me. I've lost everything, my money, my freedom, my reputation. I'm a pariah, and I have nothing left." I paused, my finger hovering over the end call button. A part of me wanted to simply hang up, to let Rowan wallow in the consequences of his own actions. But another part, a small, stubborn part, urged me to at least hear him out. "What do you want, Rowan?" I asked, my voice measured and calm. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and I could almost feel the weight of his shame. I want to start over, Lila. I want to make amends, to try and rebuild my life. But I can't do it alone. Please, help me." I took a deep breath, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. After everything Rowan had put me through, could I really find it in myself to offer him a second chance? Could I, the woman he had betrayed so deeply, be the one to extend a lifeline? In the end, the decision wasn't as difficult as I had anticipated. "Rowan, I can't forgive you for what you've done. The damage you've caused is too great, and the trust you've broken can't be mended." I paused, steeling myself for what I was about to say next. "But if you're truly serious about starting over, about making amends, then I'll help you. On one condition. You have to be willing to work for it. Nothing will be handed to you this time." There was a moment of stunned silence, and then a faint, fragile voice came through the receiver. "Thank you, Lila. I won't let you down. I promise." As I hung up the phone, I felt a strange mix of emotions, a lingering resentment, a sliver of hope, and a profound sense of purpose. Rowan's road to redemption would be a long and arduous one, but if anyone could walk that path, it was him. And if he succeeded, perhaps there was a chance for true healing, for both of us. With a renewed sense of determination, I turned my attention back to the Foundation, ready to forge ahead and continue making a difference in the lives of women everywhere. This was my new beginning, and I was determined to make the most of it.
I always knew my sister's engagement party would be the death of me, but I never expected it to end with me being accused of sleeping with her fiancé in front of 200 guests. My name is Sawyer, and I've spent 28 years being Caroline's little sister. You know the type, the golden child who excels at everything while you're just there. Tonight was supposed to be her moment again, and I was determined to fade into the background like always. The Grand Plaza Hotel's ballrooms sparkled with champagne flutes and fake smiles. I adjusted my emerald dress, the one Caroline picked out because it wouldn't overshadow her white designer gown, and tried to blend in with the potted plants. "There's my favorite wallflower." Blaze appeared beside me, his familiar grin offering temporary relief. "You look like you're having about as much fun as a root canal." "That obvious?" I sipped my champagne. "I'm trying to perfect my invisibility act." "Good luck with that. Your mother's been telling everyone how her baby is still single while Caroline landed the perfect man." He rolled his eyes. Speaking of Prince Charming, Dylan was working the room like a politician, his perfectly styled hair and $1,000 suit screaming old money. He caught my eye and winked. I quickly looked away, my stomach churning. "God, I need air," I muttered, heading for the terrace. Blaze followed, concern etched on his face. "So what's wrong? You've been off all night." Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Another message from Dylan. I'd been getting them for weeks, each one more inappropriate than the last. I deleted it without reading, just like all the others. "Nothing's wrong," I lied. "Just family stuff." "Ladies," my mother's voice cut through the night air. "Caroline's about to give her speech. Get inside now." We shuffled back in as Caroline took center stage, radiant in white. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight," she began, her voice carrying across the room, "especially my beautiful sister Sawyer." My chest tightened. This wasn't in the script. "My sister, who's always been there for me." Caroline's voice cracked. "Who I trusted completely." She turned to face me, tears streaming down her face. "How could you sleep with him?" The room went silent. 200 pairs of eyes locked onto me. "What?" I stammered. "Caroline, I saw the messages," she screamed. "On his phone. All those late-night texts, the pictures." "Caroline, please." Dylan stepped forward, playing the concerned fiancé perfectly. "Let's discuss this privately." "No." She pulled away from him. "I want everyone to know what kind of sister she is." Rosalie, Caroline's best friend, rushed to her side. "Care, honey, let's go somewhere quiet." I stood frozen as whispers erupted around me. My mother's face had turned to stone. Blaze gripped my arm, keeping me upright as my world imploded. "I never slept with him," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "Caroline, you have to believe me." "Show them your phone, then," Rosalie challenged, her eyes glinting with something I couldn't quite place. "Show everyone the messages." "Yes, show us," Caroline demanded. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone. I deleted them all. He wouldn't stop sending them, but I never responded. Not once. "How convenient," someone muttered in the crowd. "Caroline," I stepped toward my sister, but she backed away. "You know me. I would never—" "I thought I knew you," she spat. "I guess I was wrong." The room spun as Caroline stormed out, Rosalie close behind. Dylan gave me one last look. Was that a smirk? Before following them. "Well," my mother said, her voice arctic, "I suppose the party's over." As guests began filtering out, Blaze pulled me aside. "What really happened?" I took a shaky breath. "Remember when you said I've been off lately? It's because of Dylan. He's been messaging me for weeks, getting more aggressive each time. I kept deleting them because I didn't want to hurt Caroline, but..." I pulled out an envelope from my clutch. I also kept screenshots, just in case. In case of what? I watched as Rosalie hurried after my sister, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor. Something about her eagerness to fuel the drama didn't sit right. "In case exactly this happened," I said quietly. "And now I think I know why." The ballroom emptied around us, leaving behind half-empty champagne glasses and shattered family ties. But as I gripped the envelope containing proof of Dylan's true nature, one thing became crystal clear. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. "You need to see this now," I said, pounding on Caroline's apartment door. The hallway was eerily quiet at midnight, but I knew she was home. Her car was in its usual spot, and I'd seen her bedroom light on. "Go away." Her voice was thick with tears. "Care, please. I have proof." I pressed my forehead against the door. "I'm not leaving until you let me show you." The lock clicked, and Caroline appeared, mascara streaked across her face. She'd changed into sweatpants but still wore her engagement party jewelry, a painful reminder of the evening's disaster. "5 minutes," she said coldly. "Then you leave." I followed her inside, clutching the envelope like a lifeline. The apartment was a mess. Flowers torn apart, photos face down, an empty wine bottle on the coffee table. "Where's Rosalie?" I asked, noticing her best friend's absence. "She went to get more wine." Caroline collapsed onto the couch. "Someone should be enjoying my engagement party." I sat beside her, keeping distance between us. "Remember when we were kids and I broke Mom's favorite vase? You took the blame because you knew she'd go easier on you." "What's your point?" "My point is, I've never forgotten that, or any other time you've had my back." I pulled out my phone. "Which is why I would never betray you like this." I opened my screenshots folder and handed her the phone. "These started 3 months ago. At first they were casual, asking about your favorite things, claiming he wanted to surprise you. Then they got different." Caroline's hands trembled as she scrolled. Her face paled with each message. "I can't stop thinking about you." She read aloud. "Caroline doesn't understand me like you do. We should meet somewhere private." She looked up, eyes wide. "You never responded." "Not once," I confirmed. "I blocked him twice, but he kept using new numbers. I saved everything because something felt wrong, like he was setting me up." "But why would he—" The door opened, and Rosalie bustled in with 2 bottles of wine. She froze when she saw me. "What is she doing here?" Rosalie's voice was sharp. "Showing me some interesting messages," Caroline said quietly. "You wouldn't know anything about those, would you, Rose?" Rosalie's perfectly manicured hand tightened around the wine bottle. "Care, honey, you're upset. Don't let her manipulate you." "Funny choice of words," I said, pulling more papers from my envelope, "especially considering these." I spread out printed screenshots of conversations between Dylan and Rosalie. Weeks of planning, coordinating when to send messages, discussing how to make Caroline doubt me. "Where did you get those?" Rosalie whispered. "Blaze works in cybersecurity," I said. "Amazing what you can recover from a cloud backup, even after deletion. Want to explain why you're helping Dylan set me up?" Caroline stood, wine forgotten. Rose, tell me this isn't real. Rosalie's facade cracked. He promised it wasn't supposed to. She took a shaky breath. You don't understand. Dylan and I. How long? Caroline's voice was deadly quiet. 6 months, Rosalie whispered. He said he'd leave you for me, but he needed a reason that wouldn't hurt his reputation. When he noticed how jealous you get about Sawyer, I caught Caroline as her knees buckled. Together, we sank onto the couch while Rosalie stood awkwardly, still clutching her wine bottles like shields. Get out, Caroline said. Care, please. Get out! Caroline hurled a throw pillow at her former best friend. Rosalie fled, leaving the apartment door wide open behind her. For a long moment, we sat in silence. Then Caroline turned to me, fresh tears falling. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I should have known you'd never. Hey! I pulled her into a hug. You're not the one who needs to apologize. I humiliated you in front of everyone. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. God, Mom probably thinks. Mom always thinks the worst of me anyway. I shrugged. But that's not important right now. What matters is what we're going to do about this. Caroline's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? I picked up one of the screenshots. Well, we have proof that your fiancé and best friend conspired to humiliate both of us. They tried to destroy our relationship to cover up their affair. A small smile played at my lips. Question is, how do we want to return the favor? For the first time that night, Caroline smiled back, a dangerous glint in her eye that I recognized from our childhood pranking days. Tell me more, she said. As I began outlining my thoughts, I realized something had shifted. For the first time in our lives, Caroline wasn't the star and I wasn't the shadow. We were equals, united against a common enemy. And heaven help anyone who tried to come between sisters out for revenge. Check your deleted messages folder, I said, watching Caroline scroll through her phone. We'd moved to her kitchen table, surrounded by coffee cups and revenge plans. Dylan might have gotten sloppy. I never even knew there was a deleted folder. Caroline's fingers trembled as she navigated through her settings. Oh my God. What? There are dozens of messages, from both of them. She looked up, face pale. They were deleting them from my phone remotely using some app. I pulled my chair closer. Show me. The messages painted a sickening picture. While Dylan was sending me inappropriate texts, he'd been carrying on a full-blown affair with Rosalie. They'd even used Caroline's own apartment when she was at work. That's why she always offered to water my plants, Caroline whispered. I gave her a key because I trusted her. Keep reading. Caroline's gasp echoed through the kitchen. They were planning to announce their engagement next month, at my parents' anniversary party. She slammed the phone down. He was going to dump me in front of our entire family. And blame it all on me, I added. The jealous little sister who ruined everything. No one would question it. Mom would have disowned you. Pretty sure she already has. I took a sip of coffee. But that's not important right now. What matters is that we have everything we need. Caroline's phone buzzed. Dylan's name flashed on the screen. Perfect timing, I said. Answer it, on speaker. Caroline's hand shook as she hit the button. Hello? Baby, please. Dylan's voice oozed concern. Let me explain. Your sister's been throwing herself at me for months. I didn't want to hurt you by telling you. Save it, Caroline snapped. I've seen the messages, the real ones. A pause. What messages? The ones between you and Rosalie, the ones you deleted from my phone. Caroline's voice grew stronger. The ones about your little plan. Caroline, you're upset. You're not thinking clearly. Actually, I'm thinking very clearly. She met my eyes across the table. Clear enough to know that if you don't meet me at Cafe Luna tomorrow at noon, every single screenshot goes to your father. I wonder how the board of directors would feel about their CEO's son planning to humiliate his fiancé. Another pause, longer this time. You're bluffing. I leaned toward the phone. Hi, Dylan. Remember all those messages you sent me? The ones I never responded to? Turns out they're pretty damning when paired with your conversations with Rosalie, especially the parts about using me as your scapegoat. Sawyer. Noon tomorrow. Caroline interrupted. Bring Rosalie. Don't be late. She hung up before he could respond. For a moment, we sat in silence. That felt good, she finally said. Just wait until tomorrow. I pulled out my laptop. Now, about those security cameras in Cafe Luna. What about them? Let's just say Blaze owes me a favor, and he's very good at his job. Caroline's eyes lit up with understanding. You want to record the confrontation? Better. I typed rapidly, pulling up blueprints of the cafe. I want to broadcast it, live. To who? Remember that group chat Mom has with all her society friends? The one she added us to, but we never use? I grinned. Turns out Dylan's mom is in it, along with half the country club. Caroline matched my grin. And the board members' wives. Exactly. I closed the laptop. But first we need to make a few calls, starting with that wedding planner who's been blowing up your phone. Amanda, why? Because she's also the event coordinator for your parents' anniversary party. The one where Dylan planned to humiliate you? I raised an eyebrow. I think she deserves a heads up about the change in entertainment. Caroline pulled out her phone again, determination replacing grief in her eyes. What else? We need to call the jewelry store first thing tomorrow. That engagement ring needs to be returned before Dylan can get his hands on it. Already done. Caroline twisted the ring off her finger. I'm meeting them at 10 a.m. Perfect. I stood, stretching. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. Caroline caught my arm as I headed for the door. Sawyer, thank you for not giving up on me even when I didn't believe you. That's what sisters are for. I hugged her tight. Besides, no one messes with the Townsend girls. No one, she agreed. As I drove home, my phone lit up with a message from Blaze. Cameras are set, audio too. Whatever you're planning, it better be good. I smiled in the darkness. Good didn't begin to cover what we had in store for tomorrow. Dylan and Rosalie thought they could play us against each other. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. Cafe Luna buzzed with its usual lunch crowd, but the tension at our corner table could have cut glass. Caroline sat beside me, elegant in a black dress that screamed, "Funeral for my relationship." Blaze lounged at the counter, pretending to work on his laptop while actually managing our live feed. They're late, Caroline muttered, checking her phone. They'll come. I adjusted my water glass, making sure it wouldn't block the hidden camera. Too much at stake not to. Right on cue, Dylan strode in, Rosalie trailing behind him. He'd worn his power suit, the one he used for board meetings. Rosalie looked like she hadn't slept, her designer outfit wrinkled and her makeup slightly smudged. Caroline, darling, Dylan started, pulling out a chair. Sit down and shut up, Caroline said pleasantly. Several nearby diners glanced over. Perfect. There's no need for drama. Dylan lowered his voice. We can discuss this privately. Like you discussed things privately in my apartment? Caroline's voice carried just enough to draw more attention. While I was at work? Rosalie sank into her chair, face burning. Care, please. Don't call me that. Caroline pulled out her phone. Only my friends call me that. You know, friends who don't sleep with my fiancé. This is ridiculous. Dylan straightened his tie. Whatever you think you have. I slid my tablet across the table. We have everything. Every message, every plan, every detail about how you were going to blame me for your affair and humiliate Caroline at her parents' anniversary party. Those messages could be faked, Dylan scoffed, but his face had paled. True, I nodded. But the security footage from Caroline's building isn't faked. Neither are the hotel receipts, or the messages you sent me. I leaned forward. Want to see them all? The board members' wives are watching right now. Live. Dylan's head snapped up, finally noticing Blaze in his laptop. His composure cracked. You wouldn't dare. Already did. Caroline smiled sweetly. Wave to your mother, Dylan. She just joined the stream. Rosalie burst into tears. I'm so sorry. He said he loved me. He promised we'd be together. Save it, I cut in. We saw your messages too. This was your idea, wasn't it? The plan to blame me? Rosalie glanced at Dylan, who was frantically checking his phone. Yes, I knew Caroline was always sensitive about you getting attention. It seemed perfect. Perfect? Caroline's voice shook. I've known you since college. You were my maid of honor. And you had everything, Rosalie snapped. The perfect job, the perfect fiancé, the perfect life. I was just your shadow, always the backup plan. How's it feel? I asked quietly. Being someone's shadow? The irony wasn't lost on Caroline. She reached for my hand under the table. The ring, she said to Dylan. It's already back at the jeweler's, along with evidence of how you used company funds to pay for your little rendezvous. Dylan's face went from pale to gray. You can't prove... Check your email, I suggested. The board should be receiving their copies right about now. His phone buzzed, then buzzed again, and again. You've ruined me, he whispered. No. Caroline stood, her voice clear and strong. You ruined yourself, and you tried to ruin my relationship with my sister in the process. I never meant, Rosalie started. To get caught, I finished. Funny how that works. Dylan grabbed Rosalie's arm. We're leaving. This isn't over. Actually, it is, Blaze called from the counter. The stream just hit 10,000 viewers, including, according to these comments, your father and the entire board. Oh, and Rosalie, Caroline added, your resignation letter from the firm has already been accepted. Amazing how quickly they act when they discover you've been sharing confidential client information with your lover. Rosalie crumpled, mascara streaming down her face. Dylan practically dragged her toward the door, leaving behind his untouched water and what remained of his dignity. The cafe erupted in applause. Someone shouted, "Girl power," from the back. Well, Blaze joined us, closing his laptop. That was better than Netflix. Caroline laughed, a real laugh, maybe her first in days. I can't believe we actually did it. Believe it, I grinned, though Mom's probably having a stroke right now. Let her, Caroline said firmly. For once, I don't care what anyone thinks. You were right all along, and I should have trusted you. Water under the bridge, I waved down a waiter. Now I think this calls for champagne. To Karma, Caroline raised her water glass. To sisters, I corrected. Blaze's phone chimed. Guys, the video's going viral. You might want to prepare for some interesting family dinners. Caroline and I looked at each other and burst out laughing. Let them talk. We'd shown them all exactly what happens when you try to come between sisters. And something told me no one would dare try again. The aftermath hit like a tidal wave. By evening, our phones wouldn't stop buzzing with notifications, calls, and messages. Caroline and I retreated to my apartment where we sat cross-legged on my living room floor, sharing takeout and reading reactions. Listen to this one. Caroline held up her phone. Best karma video ever. The look on his face when they mentioned the board meeting. She scrolled further. It's got 2 million views already. Great, I mumbled around a mouthful of pad thai. Mom's gonna love that. Right on cue, my doorbell rang. We froze, chopsticks midair. Speaking of... Caroline grimaced. I opened the door to find our mother, perfectly coiffed despite the late hour, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. Well, she said, sweeping past me, I suppose I should be grateful I found out about this from the video rather than the country club gossip circle. Hello to you too, Mom. I closed the door. Would you like some pad thai? What I'd like, she perched on my sofa, is an explanation. Do you two have any idea what you've done? Caroline stood, shoulders back. Yes, actually. We exposed a cheater and a liar before he could humiliate me at your anniversary party. By humiliating him first? Creating a social media spectacle? No, I joined my sister. By telling the truth. Something Dylan and Rosalie should have tried. Mom's facade cracked slightly. Rosalie, too. But she was like a daughter to me. Yeah, well, Caroline's voice broke. She was like a sister to me, and that didn't stop her from sleeping with my fiancé in my own apartment. Mom's expression softened. She patted the sofa beside her. Sit, both of you. We complied, feeling like kids again. I received some interesting calls today, Mom continued, from the wives of several board members. They're all quite impressed with how you handled things. They are? I blinked. Apparently you're being hailed as some sort of, what did Margaret call it? Sister's goals? Mom shuddered delicately at the modern phrase. The point is, you protected each other, though your methods were rather dramatic. That was my idea, I admitted. The public exposure. No, Caroline interrupted. It was our idea. We did it together. Mom studied us for a long moment. You know, when you were little, all I wanted was for you to be close. But somewhere along the way, she sighed. Perhaps I contributed to the distance between you. Mom, I started. Let me finish. She straightened her skirt. Sawyer, I may have been unfair to you over the years, always comparing you to Caroline. May have been? Caroline scoffed. Caroline, Mom's voice sharpened. You're not innocent either. You've taken advantage of that favoritism. We sat in stunned silence. Our mother had never been this direct about family dynamics. The video of your confrontation made me realize something, she continued. You're strongest when you're together, and I'm proud of you both. You're proud of us causing a social media scandal? I couldn't help asking. I'm proud of you standing up for what's right. Mom actually smiled, though next time, perhaps consider a more private venue. Caroline laughed. No promises. Now, Mom stood, smoothing her dress. About the anniversary party next week. We don't have to go, Caroline said quickly. After all this drama. Of course you're going, Mom cut her off. In fact, I'm counting on it. Several guests have specifically asked if you'll be there. Apparently they're hoping for an encore performance. I choked on my water. Mom! What? If my daughters are going to be internet sensations, I might as well embrace it. She headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and Sawyer, wear that emerald dress again. It suits you. After she left, Caroline and I stared at each other in disbelief. Did our mother just approve of our revenge plot? I asked. I think she did. Caroline grabbed her phone. And speaking of the anniversary party, have you seen Dylan's latest post? I leaned over to look. Dylan had posted a formal apology, claiming temporary insanity and begging for professional forgiveness. Damage control, I snorted. Too little, too late. Way too late, Caroline agreed. But you know what this means? What? He's desperate, which means he might try something at the anniversary party. Her eyes gleamed. Want to plan one more performance? I grabbed my laptop. Call Blaze. If Dylan wants an encore, let's give him one he'll never forget. As we began plotting, I realized something had fundamentally shifted. Not just between Caroline and me, but in how we saw ourselves. We weren't the golden child in the shadow anymore. We were simply sisters, united and unstoppable. And anyone who thought our cafe showdown was impressive hadn't seen anything yet. The country club ballroom glittered with 30 years of anniversary celebrations. Mom had outdone herself, crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, and enough champagne to float a yacht. But Caroline and I were focused on the security feed playing on my phone. There, Caroline pointed. Dylan just arrived, and he's not alone. Sure enough, Rosalie slipped in through the side entrance moments after him. They were trying to be subtle, but the furtive glances gave them away. Right on schedule, I texted Blaze, who was monitoring the club's security system from his car outside. Start recording. I can't believe they actually came, Caroline whispered, accepting a champagne flute from a passing waiter. Of course they did. Dylan's father is on the board with Dad. Missing this party would be career suicide. Speaking of careers, Caroline nodded toward the entrance. Look who else showed up. Amanda, the wedding planner, strutted in wearing a dress that screamed revenge. She'd been furious about losing Caroline's commission, and even more furious when she discovered Dylan had been hitting on her assistant. Perfect, I grinned. Everyone's here. Ready? Caroline squared her shoulders. Born ready. We split up, working the room separately. I caught snippets of conversation as I moved through the crowd, mostly about our viral video with a healthy dose of speculation about tonight's events. Ladies and gentlemen, Dad's voice boomed through the speakers. If I could have your attention, that was my cue. I slipped behind the makeshift stage where the band was setting up, giving Blaze the signal through my phone. The lights dimmed slightly as Dad continued his anniversary speech. Mom beamed beside him, but her eyes kept darting to where Caroline stood near the dessert table. She knew something was coming. And now, Dad wrapped up, I believe my daughters have prepared a special presentation. Caroline joined me on stage as the giant screen behind us flickered to life. Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd when security camera footage appeared, showing Dylan and Rosalie entering the party separately. What is this? Dylan stood up, his face reddening. This, Caroline spoke into the microphone, is what a desperate man looks like. The screen split to show multiple angles of Dylan and Rosalie's arrival, along with timestamps from the past hour. Then it switched to footage from earlier that day, them meeting in a hotel lobby, planning their entrance. Turn it off, Dylan demanded, starting toward the stage. But wait, there's more. I took the microphone. Let's see what else our friend Dylan's been up to since our little cafe chat. The screen filled with screenshots. Dylan messaging other women, including Amanda's assistant. Messages to his father claiming Caroline was unstable. emails to board members trying to spin the situation. You see, Caroline addressed the stunned crowd. Dylan thought he could salvage his reputation by painting us as crazy, vindictive women. Which might have worked, I added, if he hadn't used his company email for everything. Rosalie burst into tears and ran for the exit. Dylan stood frozen, watching his career implode in real time as board members and their wives whispered and pointed. Oh, and Dad? Caroline smiled sweetly at Dylan's father. You might want to audit those expense reports more carefully. We found some interesting charges from hotels, jewelry stores, all billed to the company account. Dylan's father rose slowly, his face thunderous. My office first thing Monday, he growled at his son. This is harassment, Dylan shouted, but his voice cracked. I'll sue. Go ahead, I challenged. Discovery would be fascinating. The room erupted in chaos as Dylan stormed out, his father close behind. Several board members followed, phones already out. Well, Mom appeared beside us as we left the stage. That was certainly more dramatic than the string quartet I suggested. Sorry, Mom, Caroline started. Don't be. Mom sipped her champagne. Margaret just told me it was the most entertaining anniversary party she's ever attended. She paused, though perhaps we should skip the video presentation at Christmas. The party shifted into celebration mode, with several guests stopping to congratulate us on our performance. Amanda caught my eye from across the room and raised her glass in approval. Think we went too far? Caroline asked quietly as we watched Dylan's mother make a hasty exit. He was going to destroy your reputation and my relationship with our family, I reminded her. He got what he deserved. True. She linked her arm through mine. Know what else is true? What? We make a pretty good team. Blaze joined us, laptop under his arm. Hate to interrupt the sister moment, but you might want to see this. The security footage just leaked online. What? Caroline grabbed his computer. How? Apparently someone in IT has a grudge against Dylan. Something about him getting his sister fired last year? I couldn't help laughing. Karma really is a full circle thing, isn't it? As the party swirled around us, I realized we'd done more than expose Dylan and Rosalie. We'd exposed our own strength, not as rivals, not as golden child and shadow, but as sisters who had each other's backs. And that was worth all the viral videos in the world. Monday morning brought the fallout we've been waiting for. Caroline and I met for coffee at our usual spot, phones buzzing with updates. Dylan's been suspended pending investigation. Caroline read from her screen. The board is launching a full audit. That's not all. I showed her my phone. Rosalie's been blacklisted from every major PR firm in the city. Apparently, sleeping with clients' fiancés is bad for business. The bell above the cafe door chimed. We looked up to see Amanda rushing in, her face flushed with excitement. You're not going to believe this. She slid into our booth without invitation. Dylan just tried to book my services again. What? Caroline nearly spilled her latte. For what? His wedding to Rosalie. Amanda's grin was wicked. Apparently they're trying to save face by claiming it was true love all along. You said no, right? I asked. Better. Amanda pulled out her tablet. I recorded the whole consultation. Wait till you hear his sob story. The video showed Dylan, looking considerably less polished than usual, sitting in Amanda's office. It's all been a terrible misunderstanding, Video Dylan pleaded. If we could just show everyone it was real love, not some tawdry affair. By booking the same venues I reserved for Caroline? Amanda's voice was acid sweet. Using the same company credit card you're being investigated for misusing? I can explain. Save it for the board meeting. Amanda's hand appeared, showing him the door. I hear they're very interested in your explanations lately. Caroline slow clapped as the video ended. Amanda, you're officially my hero. Please, Amanda waved her hand. After what he did to my assistant, this is just the beginning. My phone buzzed again, a message from Blaze. Speaking of beginnings, guess who just got promoted to head of cybersecurity? No way. Caroline peered at my screen. All because he helped expose the company's security vulnerabilities? Apparently, Dylan's father was impressed by his initiative in identifying potential threats. I laughed, though I doubt this was what he had in mind. The cafe door chimed again. This time, Rosalie walked in. She froze when she saw us, her designer outfit replaced by yoga pants and a messy bun. I'll handle this. Caroline stood before I could stop her. We watched as she approached Rosalie, who looked ready to bolt. But instead of the confrontation we expected, Caroline simply handed her a card. What was that about? I asked when she returned. Just giving her the number of my therapist. Caroline shrugged. Someone that desperate for attention clearly needs help. That's surprisingly mature of you. Well, she stirred her coffee. Holding on to anger only hurts me. Besides, karma's doing a pretty good job on its own. Amanda's phone pinged. Speaking of karma, Dylan's father just called. Wants to know if I've heard from his son. Apparently he missed the board meeting this morning. Missed it? I frowned. That's not like him. Caroline's phone lit up with a news alert. She read it and burst out laughing. What? Amanda and I asked simultaneously. Dylan was caught trying to leave the country last night, with company funds. Caroline could barely get the words out. Airport security stopped him because someone reported his credit cards as stolen. Someone? I raised an eyebrow at Blaze's contact photo on my phone. The best part, Caroline continued, Rosalie turned him in. She's cooperating with the investigation in exchange for immunity. Hell hath no fury, Amanda mused. Like a woman scorned, I suggested. Like two sisters with a good plan and better tech support, Caroline corrected. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from Mom. Lunch today? Your father wants to discuss making you both partners in the family business. Caroline read the message over my shoulder. Both of us, really? Why not? I smiled. We've proven we work well together. That we do. She clinked her coffee cup against mine. Though maybe we should stick to legal business strategies from now on. Probably safer, Amanda agreed, though less entertaining for the rest of us. As we laughed and shared more updates about Dylan's downfall, I realized something. The shadow I'd lived in for so long hadn't just lifted. It had transformed into a spotlight big enough for both Caroline and me. You know what this means, right? Caroline interrupted my thoughts. What? Mom's going to expect us to coordinate our outfits for board meetings now. As long as it's not another emerald dress, I grinned. Deal. She grabbed her purse. Ready to go shock Dad with our business proposals? Born ready, I echoed her words from the party. As we left the cafe, Amanda called after us. Try not to cause any more scandals. No promises, we called back in unison. Because while our revenge saga might be over, our story as sisters was just beginning. And something told me it would be even better than the viral videos suggested. Ready for this? Caroline squeezed my hand as we stood outside the boardroom. Through the glass walls, we could see our father addressing the board members. As ready as I'll ever be, I smoothed my blazer, navy blue, not emerald green. You remember your part? Please. She rolled her eyes. I was born for this presentation. Dad's voice carried through the door. And now I'd like to introduce our newest partners. We walked in together, shoulders back, heads high. The same board members who'd witnessed Dylan's downfall now sat watching us with keen interest. His empty chair stood as a reminder of how quickly fortunes could change. Good morning, Caroline began, her voice steady. Today we're presenting our vision for the company's future. I clicked to the first slide, starting with a complete digital transformation of our client services. The presentation flowed smoothly between us, each picking up where the other left off. When we finished, the room stayed silent for a long moment. Impressive, Dylan's father spoke first, surprising everyone, particularly the cybersecurity initiatives, though I suppose recent events have shown how necessary those are. Speaking of recent events, another board member leaned forward. How do we know you two won't bring more drama to the company? Fair question. I met his gaze. What happened with Dylan was about protecting our family, both personal and professional. Every action we took was to expose genuine threats to this company. And it worked, Caroline added. The audit revealed he'd embezzled over $2 million. Our actions saved this company from a much bigger scandal. By creating a smaller one? Someone muttered. No, Dad stood. By showing initiative, resourcefulness, and an unwavering commitment to truth. Exactly the qualities we need in leadership. Mom chose that moment to enter, carrying a stack of folders. The final audit reports, she announced, distributing them, including the recovery plan my daughters developed. The board members flipped through the documents, eyebrows raising at the detailed analysis. This is thorough, Dylan's father admitted. We protect what's ours, I said simply. And we're very good at it, Caroline finished. The vote was unanimous. Later, celebrating in Dad's office, Mom pulled out a familiar envelope. Remember this? She handed it to me. I recognized it immediately. the envelope that had started everything, containing those first screenshots of Dylan's messages. "Keep it," Mom said, as a reminder that sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes. Like finding out your sister is actually your best ally? Caroline bumped my shoulder. Or discovering your daughters are smarter than you gave them credit for, Dad added, pouring champagne. Or learning that karma works better with a good strategy and better timing, I grinned. A knock interrupted us. Amanda poked her head in. "Sorry to interrupt, but you might want to see this." She held up her phone. Rosalie just posted her tell-all interview. We crowded around the screen, watching Rosalie detail every aspect of Dylan's schemes. The comment section was exploding. "Well," Mom sighed, "at least we're not the ones creating drama this time." "No," Caroline smiled. "We're just the ones who started it." "And finished it," I added. "To new beginnings," Dad raised his glass. "And Sister Acts." Caroline clinked her glass against mine. "Speaking of acts," Amanda scrolled through her phone. "That video of your anniversary party revenge just hit 10 million views. You're officially viral sensations." "Great," I groaned. "Just what every corporate executive wants on their resume." "Actually," Mom's eyes twinkled, "the marketing department wants to discuss your social media presence. Apparently you've made our family business relevant to millennials." We all laughed, but there was truth there. Everything had changed. Our relationships, our roles, our futures. The shadow I'd lived in had become a spotlight we shared, and the sister I'd envied had become my closest ally. "You know what this means?" Caroline nudged me. "What?" "Next board meeting, we're definitely wearing matching outfits." "As long as they're not emerald green?" Everyone finished in unison. Looking around at my family, Mom finally seeing me clearly, Dad trusting us with his legacy, and Caroline standing beside me as an equal, I realized something profound. Sometimes the happy ending isn't about getting revenge or proving yourself. Sometimes it's about discovering that what you wanted all along was right there, waiting for you to be brave enough to claim it. "To the Townsend sisters," Amanda raised her glass. "To family," Mom and Dad echoed. "To us," Caroline whispered, linking her arm through mine. "To us," I agreed, knowing that whatever came next, we'd face it together. Because that's what sisters do. Especially sisters who've learned that the best revenge isn't just living well, it's living well together.
I stare at the pile of my belongings haphazardly strewn in the hallway, my heart sinking with each passing second. The door to my loft, my sanctuary, remains firmly shut, the locks changed without my knowledge or consent. Confusion and disbelief wage a war inside me as I try to comprehend the scene before me. "Surprise!" Marcy's voice cuts through the haze, her tone dripping with false cheer. She emerges from behind the door, a smug grin plastered on her face. "I'm pregnant, and we need a bigger place. Your loft is perfect." Her words hit me like a sucker punch, knocking the wind out of my lungs. "What? You can't just take over my home, Marcy. This is my place, my life." "Oh, come on, Tessa. You're never here anyway, always jetting off to some work thing. It's time to grow up and think about family." She rests her hand on her still flat stomach, her eyes glinting with a challenge. Anger bubbles up inside me, mixing with the sting of betrayal. "Family? You mean the one that changes my locks and throws my stuff out without even a conversation?" Marcy rolls her eyes, dismissing my outrage with a flippant wave of her hand. "Don't be so dramatic. You can crash with Mom and Dad for a while. They'll be thrilled to have you back home." "And what about my job, my responsibilities? I can't just upend my life because you decided to get knocked up." The words come out harsher than I intend, but the hurt fuels my indignation. "Responsibilities?" Marcy scoffs, her lips curling into a sneer. "You mean like the way you've been playing the martyr, acting like you're the only one holding this family together? Well, guess what? It's my turn now. I need this more than you do." Her callousness cuts deep, the weight of her entitlement pressing down on my chest. "You can't just take what's mine, Marcy. This is my home, my life. You have no right." "No right." She laughs, the sound grating against my ears. "I have every right. I'm the one starting a family, while you're just playing house in your fancy loft. It's time for you to step aside and let me have my chance." Tears prick at the corners of my eyes, but I refuse to let them fall. I won't give her the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. "This isn't over, Marcy. You can't just steamroll over my life like this. Watch me." Her voice is cold, her eyes glinting with a triumphant gleam. "Face it, Tessa, you've always been the responsible one. the one who cleans up everyone's messes. Well, now it's time for you to clean up your own." With those cutting words, she turns on her heel and slams the door in my face, leaving me standing amidst the wreckage of my life. The click of the lock echoes in the hallway, a brutal finality to her actions. I sink to the floor, my back pressed against the wall, as the weight of her betrayal crashes over me. How could she do this? How could my own sister, my flesh and blood, turn against me like this? As I sit there, surrounded by the scattered remnants of my life, a fierce determination takes root inside me. I won't let her win. I won't let her destroy everything I've worked so hard to build. I'll find a way to fight back, to reclaim what's rightfully mine. Marcy may think she's won, but she has no idea the storm that's coming her way. Growing up, I always felt like I was living in Marcy's shadow. She was the charming one, the free spirit who could light up a room with her smile. I, on the other hand, was the responsible one, the diligent daughter who worked hard to make something of myself. Our parents, Janet and Harold, always seemed to favor Marcy. They indulged her every whim, bailing her out of trouble time and time again. I remember the countless nights I stayed up late, studying for exams or working on projects, while Marcy was out partying with her friends. When I landed my first job as a marketing consultant, I thought things would change. I hoped that my parents would finally see me as an equal, someone to be proud of. But even then, Marcy managed to steal the spotlight. "Tessa, honey, we're so proud of you," Mom said during one of our weekly phone calls. "But have you heard about Marcy's latest adventure? She's going to backpack through Europe for a few months. Isn't that exciting?" I gritted my teeth, trying to keep the bitterness out of my voice. "That's great, Mom, but what about my promotion at work? I thought you'd be happy for me." "Of course we are, dear. It's just that Marcy's trip sounds so thrilling. You should try to be more spontaneous like her." Those words cut deep, reinforcing the notion that no matter what I achieved, Marcy would always be the favored child. As the years went by, I found myself financially supporting my parents, believing that the money was going towards their retirement. I sent them monthly checks, sacrificing my own savings to ensure they were comfortable. Little did I know that a significant portion of that money was being funneled straight into Marcy's pockets. She would call up our parents, spinning tales of financial woe and begging for help, and they, ever the doting parents, would readily dip into the funds I provided to bail her out. It wasn't until I started noticing discrepancies in my own finances that I began to suspect something was amiss. I pored over bank statements and credit card bills, my heart sinking with each transaction I couldn't account for. When I confronted my parents about it, they were evasive at first. "Tessa, you know we would never misuse your money," Dad said, his voice strained. "We've just had some unexpected expenses, that's all." But I wouldn't let it go. I pushed and prodded until the truth finally came out. They had been using my money to fund Marcy's lavish lifestyle, from designer clothes to exotic vacations. The betrayal cut me to the core. I had trusted them, believed that they had my best interests at heart, but all along, they had been enabling Marcy's reckless behavior at my expense. "How could you do this to me?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and hurt. "I worked so hard to support you, to make sure you were taken care of, and this is how you repay me?" Mom had the decency to look ashamed, but Dad remained defensive. "Marcy needed our help, Tessa. She's family, and we couldn't turn our backs on her." "But what about me?" I shot back, the tears threatening to spill over. "Am I not family too? Or am I just a convenient ATM for you to use whenever Marcy gets herself into trouble?" The silence that followed was deafening. In that moment, I realized that I had always been an afterthought in their eyes. Marcy was the golden child, the one they would move heaven and earth for. I was just the reliable one, the one they took for granted. As I walked out of their house that day, my heart shattered into a million pieces. I made a vow to myself. I would no longer be a pawn in their games. I would cut the financial ties that bound me to their manipulation and claim my independence, no matter the cost. With my belongings hastily packed into boxes and suitcases, I find myself standing on my best friend Emily's doorstep, feeling like a refugee from my own life. She opens the door, her eyes widening as she takes in my disheveled appearance. "Tessa, what happened?" she asks, ushering me inside. I collapse onto her couch, the weight of the past few hours crashing down on me. Through choked sobs, I pour out the story of Marcy's betrayal and my parents' complicity in her schemes. Emily listens intently, her brow furrowed with concern. "I can't believe they would do this to you," she says, shaking her head. "After everything you've done for them." "I feel like such a fool," I confess, wiping away the tears that refuse to stop falling. "I trusted them, Em. I thought I was doing the right thing by supporting them." She sits down beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "You can't blame yourself, Tess. They took advantage of your kindness." As I lean into her comforting embrace, my mind races with the implications of my family's actions. I know I can't continue down this path, enabling their behavior at the cost of my own well-being. Over the next few days, as I settle into Emily's spare room, I begin to formulate a plan. I dive into my financial records, piecing together the extent of my parents' deceit. The more I uncover, the more my resolve hardens. I discover that they've been siphoning off money from the account I set up for their retirement, funneling it into Marcy's frivolous pursuits. Designer clothes, expensive trips, even a down payment on a luxury car, all funded by the money I had worked so hard to provide. The betrayal cuts deeper with each revelation, fueling the anger that simmers beneath my skin. I know I can't let this continue. I have to take a stand, to cut the financial ties that have bound me to their manipulation for far too long. I meet with a financial advisor, seeking guidance on how to disentangle myself from the mess my family has created. He helps me set up new accounts, separate from the ones my parents have been leeching off of. "You're making the right decision," he assures me, his voice filled with understanding. "It's not easy, but sometimes we have to put ourselves first." As I sign the paperwork, a sense of empowerment washes over me. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm taking control, asserting my independence from the toxic dynamics that have held me back for so long. But even as I take these steps towards freedom, I know that the hardest part is yet to come. I have to confront my parents, to make them understand the consequences of their actions. I steel myself for the inevitable showdown, rehearsing the words I'll say over and over in my mind. I won't let them manipulate me anymore, won't let them twist the truth to suit their own selfish needs. As I walk into their house, my heart pounds in my chest, but I refuse to let my resolve waver. They look up at me, their faces etched with a mixture of surprise and apprehension. "Tessa, what's going on?" Mom asks, her voice trembling slightly. I take a deep breath, steadying myself for the confrontation that's about to unfold. "We need to talk," I say, my voice firm and unwavering. "About the money, about Marcy, about everything." Their eyes widen, guilt flashing across their features. They know that the truth is about to come out, that the carefully constructed web of lies they've spun is about to unravel. And as I stand there, ready to face the storm, I know that this is just the beginning. The road ahead may be rocky, but I'm determined to forge my own path, to break free from the chains of my family's manipulation and claim the life I deserve. The family gathering is in full swing when I arrive, the sound of laughter and chatter filling the air. I take a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation that's about to unfold. With a stack of credit card statements clutched in my hand, I make my way through the crowd, my eyes scanning the room for Marcy. I find her holding court in the kitchen, surrounded by a group of admiring relatives. She's regaling them with tales of her latest shopping spree, bragging about the designer clothes and expensive jewelry she's acquired. "Marcy, we need to talk," I say, my voice cutting through the frivolity like a knife. She turns to face me, her eyes narrowing as she takes in the serious expression on my face. "Can't it wait, Tessa? I'm in the middle of a story." "No, it can't." I hold up the credit card statements, my hand trembling slightly. "We need to talk about this." Marcy's eyes widen as she realizes what I'm holding, a flicker of panic crossing her features. She quickly composes herself, plastering a fake smile on her face. "I don't know what you're talking about, sis. Those must be your statements." I shake my head, anger bubbling up inside me. "Don't lie to me, Marcy. I know you've been using my credit to finance your little shopping adventures." The room falls silent, the tension palpable. Our relatives exchange uncomfortable glances, sensing the storm that's about to break. "I have no idea what you're talking about," Marcy insists, her voice dripping with false innocence. You must be mistaken. I can't contain my fury any longer. Mistaken? You've been racking up thousands of dollars in charges on my credit cards, Marcy. Designer clothes, expensive jewelry, lavish vacations, all on my dime. Marcy's facade cracks, her true colors shining through. Oh, come on, Tessa. It's not like you can't afford it. You're the big shot with the fancy job, remember? Her words are like a slap in the face, the entitlement and lack of remorse behind them stunning me into silence for a moment. But I quickly recover, my resolve hardening. That's not the point, Marcy. You had no right to use my credit without my permission. It's fraud, plain and simple. She scoffs, rolling her eyes. Fraud? Don't be so dramatic. Sis, it's just a little shopping. No big deal. I can feel the eyes of our relatives on us, the weight of their judgment heavy in the air. But I refuse to back down, to let Marcy's manipulations go unchallenged any longer. It is a big deal, Marcy. You've been taking advantage of me for years, using me as your personal piggy bank. Well, guess what? I'm done. I'm done enabling your reckless behavior, done cleaning up your messes. Marcy's eyes flash with anger, her true nature finally exposed for all to see. You're just jealous, Tessa. Jealous that I know how to live life to the fullest while you're stuck in your boring little world. I shake my head, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. You call this living life to the fullest? Stealing from your own sister, manipulating our parents, leaving a trail of destruction in your wake? That's not living, Marcy. That's being a selfish, entitled brat. The room erupts into chaos, our relatives taking sides and voices rising in a cacophony of accusations and defenses. But I tune them out, my focus solely on Marcy. I'm cutting you off, Marcy. No more access to my credit, no more bailouts from our parents. It's time for you to face the consequences of your actions. With those words, I turn on my heel and walk out of the room, ignoring the shouts and pleas behind me. I know that this is just the beginning, that Marcy won't go down without a fight, but I'm ready for whatever she throws my way. I'm done being her doormat. Done sacrificing my own happiness for her selfish whims. It's time for me to take back control of my life, no matter the cost. In the days following the confrontation at the family gathering, I throw myself into the task of gathering evidence against Marcy. I pore over bank statements, credit card bills, and email trails, piecing together the extent of her deceit. The more I uncover, the more my anger grows. Marcy hasn't just been using my credit for her shopping sprees. She's been actively trying to turn our family against me, spinning tales of my supposed selfishness and lack of family loyalty. I find emails she sent to our parents, painting me as the villain in our story. Tessa's always been jealous of me, she writes. She can't stand to see me happy, so she's trying to ruin my life. The lies and manipulation are so blatant, so calculated, that I can hardly believe what I'm reading. How could my own sister be so cruel, so vindictive? But I refuse to let her win. I gather all the evidence I can find, compiling it into a neat little package that I know will be her undoing. As I work, I can't help but think back on all the times Marcy has taken advantage of me over the years. The borrowed money that was never repaid, the favors that were never returned, the snide comments and backhanded compliments that chipped away at my self-esteem. I realize now that I've been too passive, too willing to let her walk all over me in the name of family harmony. But no more. It's time for me to stand up for myself, to demand the respect and fairness that I deserve. I meet with a lawyer seeking guidance on how to proceed. He looks over the evidence I've gathered, nodding approvingly. This is solid, Tessa, he says. We can definitely build a case against your sister for fraud and identity theft. The words fraud and identity theft hit me like a punch to the gut. I never imagined that things would go this far, that my own sister would be facing legal consequences for her actions. But I know that I can't back down now. I have to see this through, no matter how painful it may be. I start to distance myself from my family, knowing that Marcy will stop at nothing to turn them against me. I change my phone number, block their emails, and refuse to engage in any further communication. It's a lonely existence, cut off from the people I once held dear. But I know that it's necessary, that I can't let myself be dragged back into the toxic cycle of enabling and codependency that has defined our relationship for so long. As I prepare for the inevitable legal battle ahead, I can't help but feel a sense of sadness, mixed with the anger and betrayal. I never wanted things to come to this, never wanted to have to take such drastic measures against my own flesh and blood. But I know that I'm doing the right thing, not just for myself, but for Marcy as well. She needs to face the consequences of her actions, to learn that she can't go through life taking advantage of others without repercussions. I steel myself for the fight ahead, knowing that it won't be easy. Marcy will undoubtedly try to paint me as the villain, to twist the truth to suit her own selfish narrative. But I have the truth on my side, and I won't let her lies and manipulations win out in the end. I'll present my evidence, lay bare the extent of her deceit, and let the chips fall where they may. As I sit in my temporary refuge, surrounded by the boxes and suitcases that contain the remnants of my former life, I know that I'm on the cusp of something big, a chance to break free from the chains of my past, to forge a new path for myself free from the toxic influence of my family. It won't be easy, but I'm ready for whatever comes my way. I'm done being a victim, done letting others dictate the course of my life. From now on, I'm the one in control, and heaven help anyone who tries to stand in my way. The day of the mediation session arrives, and I find myself sitting across from Marcy and our parents in a sterile conference room. The tension in the air is palpable, the weight of the impending confrontation heavy on my shoulders. Marcy sits there, a smug smile on her face, as if she's already won. Our parents look uncomfortable, shifting in their seats and avoiding eye contact with me. The mediator, a stern-looking woman in her 50s, clears her throat and begins the proceedings. We're here today to address the allegations of fraud and identity theft brought forth by Tessa Johnson against her sister, Marcy Johnson. Marcy scoffs, rolling her eyes. This is ridiculous. Tessa's just being dramatic, as usual. I feel my anger rising, but I take a deep breath and focus on the task at hand. I nod to my lawyer, who begins presenting the evidence we've gathered. He lays out the credit card statements, the email trails, the bank records that show the extent of Marcy's deceit. With each piece of evidence, I see the color drain from Marcy's face, the realization that she's been caught red-handed slowly sinking in. Our parents look stunned, their eyes widening as the truth of Marcy's actions is revealed. They turn to her, disbelief and disappointment etched on their faces. Marcy, how could you? Mom asks, her voice trembling. How could you do this to your own sister? Marcy's facade cracks, her true nature spilling out in a torrent of anger and resentment. Oh, spare me the lecture, Mom. You've always favored Tessa, always put her needs above mine. I was just taking what I deserved. Dad shakes his head, his voice heavy with sadness. We never favored Tessa, Marcy. We love you both equally. But what you've done, it's unforgivable. Marcy laughs, a bitter, hollow sound. Unforgivable? That's rich, coming from you two. You're the ones who enabled her, who let her play the martyr while I got scraps. I can't hold back any longer. I lean forward, my voice shaking with anger. Scraps, Marcy? I've been supporting you for years, bailing you out of every mess you've gotten yourself into. And this is how you repay me, by stealing from me, by trying to turn our family against me. Marcy's eyes narrow, her voice dripping with venom. You've always been the golden child, Tessa, the perfect daughter, the one who could do no wrong. Well, guess what? I'm done living in your shadow. The mediator clears her throat, trying to regain control of the situation. Miss Johnson, the evidence against you is quite clear. You're facing serious legal consequences for your actions. Marcy's face pales, the reality of her situation finally hitting her. She turns to our parents, desperation in her eyes. Mom, Dad, you have to help me. You can't let her do this to me. But our parents shake their heads, their faces etched with disappointment and resignation. We can't help you anymore, Marcy, Dad says. You've gone too far this time. I feel a twist of satisfaction at Marcy's despair, but it's tempered by the sadness of seeing our family torn apart. I never wanted things to come to this, but I know that I had no choice. The mediator turns to me, her voice sympathetic. Miss Johnson, I understand that this has been a difficult and painful process for you, but you've done the right thing by coming forward and seeking justice. I nod, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. It's not the outcome I hoped for, but it's a start. A chance to break free from the toxic cycle of enabling and codependency that has defined our family for so long. As we leave the conference room, I know that the road ahead won't be easy. Marcy will undoubtedly face legal consequences for her actions, and our family will have to grapple with the fallout of her betrayal. But I also know that I'm ready for whatever comes next. I've found my strength, my voice, and I won't let anyone silence me again. This is my story, my life, and I'm the one who gets to write the ending. In the weeks following the mediation session, I watch as Marcy's world begins to crumble around her. The legal consequences of her actions start to catch up with her, and she's forced to face the reality of the mess she's created. I hear through the grapevine that she's been fired from her job, her employer citing the pending fraud charges as grounds for termination. Her fancy apartment, the one she so gleefully took from me, is now in jeopardy as she struggles to make ends meet. Part of me feels a twisted sense of satisfaction at seeing her suffer, at watching the scales of justice finally tip in my favor. But another part of me, the part that still remembers the little girl who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms, feels a pang of sadness at how far we've fallen. I try to push those feelings aside, focusing instead on the task of rebuilding my own life. I throw myself into my work, taking on new projects and responsibilities in an effort to distract myself from the pain of my family's betrayal. But even as I try to move forward, Marcy's presence still lingers like a shadow over my life. She starts calling me at all hours of the day and night, her voice slurred and desperate as she begs for my help. "Tessa, please," she sobs into the phone. "I need money. I'm going to lose everything." I feel a flicker of anger at her audacity, at the fact that she still thinks she can manipulate me into cleaning up her messes. "You should have thought of that before you stole from me, Marcy. I'm not your personal ATM anymore." She lashes out then, her voice filled with venom. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? Seeing me suffer, watching me lose everything. You've always been jealous of me, always wanted to see me fail." I shake my head, even though she can't see me. "I never wanted this, Marcy. I never wanted our family to be torn apart like this. But you made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences." She hangs up on me then, and I'm left feeling drained and empty. I know that I'm doing the right thing by cutting her off, by refusing to enable her any longer. But it doesn't make it any easier to watch my sister self-destruct. As the weeks turn into months, I start to hear rumors about Marcy's increasingly erratic behavior. She's been spotted drunk in public, getting into fights with strangers, and causing scenes at local bars. I try to distance myself from the gossip, focusing instead on my own healing. I start seeing a therapist, working through the years of trauma and codependency that have defined my relationship with my family. It's a slow and painful process, but gradually I start to feel a sense of hope and possibility that I haven't felt in years. I start to imagine a life beyond the confines of my family's dysfunction, a future where I'm free to be my own person, unencumbered by the weight of their expectations and demands. And then, one day, I receive a letter from Marcy. It's short and to the point, a simple apology for all the pain she's caused me over the years. "I know I can't undo what I've done," she writes, "but I'm getting help now, and I'm trying to be a better person. I hope that someday you can find it in your heart to forgive me." I read the letter over and over again, feeling a mix of emotions swirling inside me. Part of me wants to crumple it up and throw it away, to dismiss it as just another manipulation tactic. But another part of me, the part that still remembers the bond we once shared, feels a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there's a chance for us to heal, to find a way forward that doesn't involve the toxic cycles of the past. I know that it won't be easy, that there's no guarantee that Marcy will follow through on her promises. But for the first time in a long time, I allow myself to hope, to believe that change is possible. And as I sit there, holding that letter in my hands, I know that whatever happens next, I'll face it with the strength and resilience that I've fought so hard to earn. 2 years later, I find myself in a new city, thousands of miles away from the memories of my past. I've built a new life for myself here, one that's free from the toxic influence of my family and the constant drama that seemed to follow us wherever we went. My career has taken off in ways I never could have imagined, and I find myself thriving in my new role as a marketing executive. I've made new friends, formed new relationships, and discovered a sense of purpose and fulfillment that I never knew was possible. But even as I embrace this new chapter of my life, I can't help but think about the family I left behind. I wonder how they're doing, if they've managed to find their own paths to healing and redemption. I think about my parents, the ones who enabled Marcy's behavior for so long, and I feel a pang of sadness mixed with frustration. I know that they're not entirely to blame for what happened, that they were victims of Marcy's manipulation just as much as I was. But I also know that they played a role in perpetuating the cycle of dysfunction that nearly destroyed our family. They refused to see the truth about Marcy's behavior, choosing instead to turn a blind eye and make excuses for her actions. I've tried to maintain a relationship with them, sending the occasional email or text message to let them know that I'm doing okay. But there's a distance between us now, a gulf that feels impossible to bridge. I know that they're struggling to adjust to life without Marcy's constant demands and manipulations. I've heard through the grapevine that they've had to downsize their lifestyle, selling off assets and cutting back on expenses in order to stay afloat. Part of me feels a twisted sense of satisfaction at the thought of them finally facing the consequences of their actions. But another part of me, the part that still remembers the love and support they once provided, feels a deep sense of sadness at how far we've fallen. I try to push those feelings aside, focusing instead on the task of building a better future for myself. I've learned the hard way that I can't change the past, that I can't force my family to be something they're not. But what I can do is make sure that I never repeat their mistakes. I can break the cycle of codependency and dysfunction that nearly destroyed us all, and create a new legacy for myself that's based on honesty, integrity, and self-respect. And so I pour myself into my work, into my friendships, into the things that bring me joy and fulfillment. I volunteer at local charities, donate to causes that I believe in, and try to make a positive difference in the world around me. I know that I can't save everyone, that I can't fix all the broken parts of my family's past, but I can be a force for good in my own life and in the lives of those around me. And as for Marcy, the sister who nearly destroyed everything I held dear, I hear through the grapevine that she's started to turn her life around, that she's entered a rehab program, and is working to make amends for her past actions. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive her completely, if I'll ever be able to trust her again after everything that's happened. But I do know that I'm proud of her for taking that first step, for finally acknowledging the pain she's caused and working to be a better person. Maybe someday we'll find our way back to each other. Maybe we'll be able to rebuild the bond that was once so strong between us. But for now, I'm content to focus on my own journey, on the path that I've chosen for myself. And as I look out at the city skyline, at the endless possibilities that stretch out before me, I know that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. I'm free, I'm happy, and I'm finally living life on my own terms. I take a deep breath as I step out of the car, my hand tightly clasped in Ethan's. The house looms before us, a stark reminder of the years of silence that stretch between Ethan and his father. I squeeze Ethan's hand, offering a reassuring smile. "It's going to be okay," I whisper, though the words feel hollow even to my own ears. Ethan nods, his jaw clenched tight. "Let's just get this over with," he mutters, striding towards the front door. I follow, my heart pounding in my chest as Ethan raises his hand to knock. The door swings open, revealing a man I've only seen in faded photographs. Frank, Ethan's father, stands before us, his face etched with lines of age and bitterness. "Ethan," he says, his voice gruff. "It's been a long time." "Dad," Ethan replies, his tone carefully neutral. "This is Zara, my wife." Frank's gaze shifts to me, his eyes narrowing slightly. "A pleasure," he says, though his tone suggests otherwise. We step inside, the house feeling strangely cold despite the warm summer day. Frank leads us to the living room, gesturing for us to sit. I perch on the edge of the couch, my hands folded tightly in my lap. "So," Frank begins, leaning back in his armchair, "what brings you here after all these years?" Ethan clears his throat, his eyes meeting mine briefly before he speaks. "Zara thought it was time we tried to mend things between us. For the sake of family." Frank scoffs, shaking his head. "Family? You haven't been much of a family to me, boy." I bristle at his words, but Ethan remains calm. I know we've had our differences, Dad, but I'm here now, aren't I? Frank grunts, his gaze shifting to the window. I suppose you are. The conversation lulls, the tension thick in the air. I clear my throat, desperate to break the silence. Ethan tells me you used to work in sales, Frank. What was that like? Frank's eyes snap back to me, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. It was a job, he says shortly. Nothing more, nothing less. I nod, sensing that further questions won't be welcomed. We sit in awkward silence for a few more moments before Ethan stands abruptly. We should get going, he says, his voice strained. It's a long drive back. Frank nods, rising slowly from his chair. Don't be a stranger, he says, though his words lack sincerity. We say our goodbyes, the door closing behind us with a heavy thud. As we walk back to the car, I can't shake the feeling that something is off. Frank's demeanor, his cold reception, it all feels wrong somehow. A month later, the phone rings. It's Frank, his voice tinged with desperation. I need your help, he says, his words tumbling out in a rush. I'm sick, and I can't take care of myself anymore. I need to move in with you and Ethan. I freeze, the phone nearly slipping from my grasp. Move in with us? After the way he treated Ethan at our visit? I glance at Ethan, seeing the conflicted emotions playing across his face. We'll have to discuss it, I say finally, my voice trembling slightly. Can we call you back? Frank agrees, and I hang up the phone, my mind reeling. I turn to Ethan, my heart sinking at the look of resignation on his face. He's my father, Ethan says softly. I can't turn him away. I nod, knowing that Ethan's sense of duty will always win out in the end. But as we begin to make plans for Frank's arrival, I can't shake the feeling that we're making a terrible mistake. The day Frank moves in, I feel a sense of unease that I can't quite shake. Ethan and I help him settle into the guest room, arranging his few belongings and making sure he's comfortable. At first, things seem to be going smoothly. Frank is polite, even charming at times, and I start to think that maybe my initial reservations were unfounded. But as the weeks pass, I begin to notice little things that set off alarm bells in my head. Frank starts making offhand comments about money, hinting at the financial strain he's under. One evening, over dinner, he finally comes out with it. I hate to ask, he says, his eyes downcast, but I'm in a bit of a bind. My late wife, she left me with some significant gambling debts. I don't know how I'm going to pay them off. Ethan's fork clatters to his plate, his face etched with concern. Dad, why didn't you say something sooner? We could have helped. Frank shakes his head, a wry smile on his lips. I didn't want to be a burden, but now, living here with you, I thought maybe. He trails off, letting the implication hang in the air. I glance at Ethan, seeing the wheels turning in his head. We can cover the debts, Ethan says finally, and you can stay here with us, save on living costs. It's the least we can do. I open my mouth to protest, but the words die on my lips. How can I argue with Ethan's generosity, his desire to help his father? So I nod, forcing a smile onto my face. Of course, I say, we're family after all. Frank's face breaks into a grin, and he reaches across the table to clasp Ethan's hand. Thank you, son. You don't know how much this means to me. But as I watch the exchange, I can't shake the feeling that something isn't right. There's a glint in Frank's eye, a calculating edge to his smile that makes my skin crawl. The next few weeks are a blur of financial discussions and budget adjustments. Ethan insists on paying off Frank's debts in full, even though it means dipping into our savings. I try to voice my concerns, but Ethan waves them away. He's my father, Zara, he says, his voice firm. I can't just turn my back on him. I nod, swallowing my objections. But as the days pass, I start to notice a change in Ethan. He seems distracted, distant, as if he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. One evening, he comes home late from work, his face drawn and tired. I'm in the kitchen, preparing dinner, when he walks in and slumps into a chair. I quit my job today, he says, his voice barely above a whisper. I nearly drop the spoon I'm holding, my heart leaping into my throat. What? Why? Ethan runs a hand through his hair, his eyes meeting mine. I want to start a nonprofit, Zara. I want to make a difference in the world. I stare at him, my mind reeling. A nonprofit? Now, when we're already stretched thin financially? But before I can voice my concerns, Frank walks into the kitchen, his face twisted into a scowl. A nonprofit? He sneers, his voice dripping with disdain. How are you going to support us on that, boy? You think your little dream is more important than taking care of your family? Ethan flinches as if he's been slapped, his face flushing with shame. I just thought. You thought wrong, Frank snaps, cutting him off. You're being selfish, Ethan. You can't afford to chase your dreams when you have responsibilities. I watch as Ethan seems to shrink before my eyes, his shoulders slumping in defeat. And in that moment, I realize the truth. Frank isn't here because he needs our help. He's here to manipulate us, to bleed us dry and break us down, and I'll be damned if I let him get away with it. The days turn into weeks, and Frank's presence in our home becomes increasingly suffocating. He seems to take pleasure in belittling Ethan at every turn, constantly reminding him of the financial strain his nonprofit is putting on our family. I try to shield Ethan from the worst of it, but Frank's words have a way of worming their way into his mind. I watch as my once confident husband starts to doubt himself, his dreams slowly crumbling under the weight of his father's disapproval. One evening, I overhear Frank talking to Ethan in the living room. His voice is loud, carrying easily through the thin walls. "You're a failure, Ethan," he says, his tone dripping with contempt. "You think you can change the world with your little nonprofit? You can't even take care of your own family." I feel a surge of anger rising in my chest, and I storm into the room, my eyes blazing. "That's enough, Frank," I snap, my voice trembling with rage. "You have no right to speak to Ethan that way." Frank turns to me, his face twisted into a sneer. "Stay out of this, Zara. This is between me and my son." But I refuse to back down. "Ethan is my husband," I say, my voice growing stronger with each word, "and I won't let you tear him down like this." Frank scoffs, shaking his head. "You don't understand, girl. I'm trying to help him, to make him see the error of his ways." I laugh, the sound harsh and bitter. "Help him? By crushing his dreams and making him feel worthless? That's not help, Frank. That's abuse." Ethan looks up at me, his eyes wide with surprise. I can see the gratitude in his gaze, the relief at having someone stand up for him. But Frank isn't finished. "You think you're so smart, don't you, Zara?" he says, his voice low and menacing. "You think you know what's best for Ethan? Well, let me tell you something. I'm his father, and I know what's best for him. And what's best is for him to give up this foolish dream and focus on taking care of his family." I shake my head, my heart breaking for Ethan. "You're wrong, Frank. Ethan's dream is what makes him who he is. It's what drives him, what gives him purpose, and I won't let you take that away from him." Frank's face darkens, and for a moment, I think he might lash out at me, but instead he turns and stalks out of the room, slamming the door behind him. I turn to Ethan, my heart aching at the defeated slump of his shoulders. "I'm so sorry," I whisper, pulling him into my arms. "I'm sorry you have to deal with this." Ethan clings to me, his body shaking with silent sobs. "I don't know what to do, Zara," he says, his voice muffled against my shoulder. I feel like I'm being pulled in 1,000 different directions. I stroke his hair, my mind racing with possibilities, and then, suddenly, it hits me. The pieces fall into place, and I realize the truth of what's been happening. "Ethan," I say, pulling back to look him in the eye, "I think your father is manipulating us. I think he's been planning this from the start." Ethan frowns, his brow furrowing in confusion. "What do you mean?" I take a deep breath, my mind whirling with the implications of what I'm about to say. "Think about it. He shows up out of nowhere, asking for money and a place to stay. He guilt-trips you into quitting your job and starting a nonprofit, knowing it will put a strain on our finances. And now he's constantly belittling you, making you feel like a failure." Ethan's eyes widen, and I can see the realization dawning on his face. "You're right," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. "But why? Why would he do this?" I shake my head, my heart heavy with the knowledge of what we're up against. "I don't know," I say, "but I intend to find out." The next day, I wait until Ethan leaves for work before confronting Frank. I find him in the living room, lounging in his armchair with a newspaper in his lap. "We need to talk," I say, my voice tight with anger. Frank looks up at me, his eyes narrowing. "About what?" I take a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation to come. "I know what you're doing, Frank. I know you're manipulating Ethan, trying to bleed us dry." Frank's face hardens, and he sets the newspaper aside. "I don't know what you're talking about, Zara. I'm just a concerned father, trying to look out for my son." I shake my head, my hands clenching into fists at my sides. No, you're not. You're a liar and a manipulator, and I won't let you get away with it. Frank stands up, his face twisting into a sneer. You don't know anything, girl. You think you can come into my family and start making accusations? You have no idea what you're talking about. I stand my ground, refusing to be intimidated. I know more than you think, Frank. I know about your debts, about how you've been using Ethan to pay them off. Frank's eyes widen, and for a moment I see a flicker of fear cross his face, but then his expression hardens and he takes a step towards me. You think you're so clever, don't you, Zara? He says, his voice low and menacing. You think you've got it all figured out. Well, let me tell you something. You're right, I am in debt. But it's not from gambling. It's from failed business ventures, investments that went south. I stare at him, my mind reeling with the implications of his words. So, you've been using Ethan to bail you out? To pay off your mistakes? Frank shrugs, a cruel smile playing at the corners of his mouth. What can I say? The boy owes me. I raised him, put a roof over his head. The least he can do is help his old man out in his time of need. I feel a surge of disgust rising in my throat, and I have to fight the urge to slap the smug look off his face. You're despicable, I spit, my voice trembling with rage. You're taking advantage of Ethan's love for you, his sense of duty. You're destroying him, piece by piece. Frank laughs, the sound harsh and grating. Destroying him? Please. I'm making him stronger, teaching him the realities of life, and if he can't handle it, well, that's his problem. I shake my head, my heart breaking for Ethan. You're wrong, Frank. Ethan is one of the strongest people I know, and he doesn't need you, not anymore. Frank's face darkens, and he takes another step towards me. You think you can turn him against me? You think you can take my son away from me? I stand my ground, my chin lifted in defiance. I'm not taking him away from you, Frank. You're doing that yourself, with your lies and your manipulations. Frank's hand twitches at his side, and for a moment I think he might strike me. But instead, he turns away, his shoulders slumping in defeat. You don't understand, Zara, he says, his voice barely above a whisper. I have a plan, a way to get out of this mess. I was going to sell the house, force you and Ethan out. I even turned his sister against you, convinced her to take my side. I stare at him, my mind reeling with the depths of his betrayal. You monster, I whisper, my voice trembling with emotion. You would destroy your own family just to save yourself? Frank turns back to me, his face a mask of desperation. I have no choice, Zara. I'm drowning in debt, and I need a way out. I shake my head, my resolve hardening. No, Frank, you do have a choice. You can face the consequences of your actions like a man. You can tell Ethan the truth and beg for his forgiveness. Frank's face twists into a sneer, and he turns away from me. I won't do that, Zara. I can't. I nod, my heart heavy with the knowledge of what I must do. Then I will, Frank. I'll tell Ethan everything, and we'll see how he reacts. But one thing is for sure. You won't be staying in this house any longer. Not if I have anything to say about it. The next few days are a blur of activity. I know I need to act fast, to gather evidence of Frank's betrayal before he has a chance to put his plan into action. I start by secretly recording our conversations, hiding my phone in my pocket and letting it capture every vile word that spills from Frank's lips. He talks about his debts, about his plans to sell the house and leave us with nothing. He even brags about turning Olivia against us, convincing her that we're the enemy. It's sickening to listen to, but I force myself to keep going, to gather as much evidence as I can. I know I'll need it if I'm going to convince Ethan of the truth. Finally, after days of recording, I have what I need. I wait until Ethan gets home from work, then pull him aside, my heart pounding in my chest. There's something you need to hear, I say, my voice trembling with emotion. I play the recordings for him, watching as his face goes from confusion to shock to anger. He listens in silence, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. When the last recording ends, he looks up at me, his eyes blazing with fury. I can't believe it, he whispers, his voice hoarse with emotion. My own father betraying me like this. I nod, my heart breaking for him. I'm so sorry, Ethan. I know how much you love him, how much you wanted to believe in him. Ethan shakes his head, his jaw clenched tight. No, Zara, you were right all along. He's been using me, manipulating me, and I let him do it. I reach out and take his hand, squeezing it gently. It's not your fault, Ethan. He's your father, and you wanted to believe the best of him. But now we need to focus on protecting ourselves, on getting away from him before he can hurt us anymore. Ethan nods, his eyes hardening with resolve. You're right. We need to sell the house, move out before he realizes what's happening. We spend the next few days in a flurry of activity, contacting real estate agents and packing up our belongings. We work in secret, but I was careful not to let Frank catch on to our plans. Finally, the day arrives. We found a buyer for the house, and everything is in place for us to move out. I wait until Frank leaves for one of his mysterious errands, then call Olivia, my hands shaking as I dial her number. Olivia, it's Zara, I say when she answers. There's something you need to hear. I play the recordings for her, my heart pounding as I wait for her reaction. At first, there's only silence on the other end of the line. Then I hear a sharp intake of breath, followed by a string of curses. That bastard, Olivia says, her voice trembling with anger. I can't believe I let him manipulate me like that. I feel a surge of relief wash over me, and I let out a shaky breath. It's not your fault, Olivia. He's good at what he does. But now we need to stand together to make sure he can't hurt anyone else. Olivia agrees, and we spend the next hour plotting our next move. By the time we hang up, I feel a sense of hope stirring in my chest. Maybe, just maybe, we can come out of this stronger than ever. The next day, Ethan and I load the last of our belongings into the moving truck and drive away from the house that has caused us so much pain. As we pull out of the driveway, I catch a glimpse of Frank's face in the rearview mirror. He looks shocked, angry, and maybe even a little afraid. But I don't let myself feel sorry for him. He made his choices, and now he has to live with the consequences. And as for Ethan and me, we have a whole new life ahead of us, one free from lies and manipulation. And I know deep in my heart that we're going to be just fine. We're barely settled into our new apartment when the phone rings. It's Frank, his voice tight with anger. What the hell do you think you're doing, Ethan? He shouts, his words slurring together. You can't just sell the house and leave me with nowhere to go. Ethan takes a deep breath, his hand clenching the phone so tightly his knuckles turn white. It's done, Dad. The house is sold, and we're not coming back. Frank lets out a string of curses, his voice rising with each word. You ungrateful little bastard. After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? I see the pain flash across Ethan's face, and I reach out to take his hand, squeezing it gently. He looks at me, his eyes filled with gratitude, and turns back to the phone. You haven't done anything for me, Dad. You've been using me, manipulating me for your own gain, and I'm done letting you control my life. Frank scoffs, his voice dripping with disdain. You think you're so smart, don't you, Ethan? You think you can just walk away from me? From your family? Ethan's jaw clenches, and I can see the anger building in his eyes. You're not my family, Dad. Not anymore. A real family doesn't lie and cheat and steal from each other. There's a long pause on the other end of the line, and for a moment I think Frank might have hung up. But then his voice comes through the speaker, low and menacing. You'll regret this, Ethan. You and that bitch wife of yours. You think you can just walk away from me? You have no idea what I'm capable of. I feel a chill run down my spine at his words, but Ethan doesn't flinch. I know exactly what you're capable of, Dad. And that's why we're walking away. You can't hurt us anymore. He hangs up the phone, his hand trembling slightly as he sets it down on the table. I wrap my arms around him, holding him close as he takes a shuddering breath. I'm so proud of you, I whisper, my voice thick with emotion. You did the right thing, Ethan. You stood up to him, and you won. Ethan nods, his eyes filling with tears. I couldn't have done it without you, Zara. You gave me the strength to fight back, to take control of my life. I smile, brushing a tear from his cheek. We did it together, Ethan, and we'll keep doing it together, no matter what comes our way. The next few days are tense, as we wait for Frank to make his next move. But as the weeks pass and nothing happens, we start to relax, to settle into our new life. And then, one day, there's a knock at the door. I open it to find Olivia standing there, her face streaked with tears. I'm so sorry, Zara, she whispers, her voice trembling. I should have believed you from the start. I should have known that Dad was lying to me. I pull her into a hug, my own eyes filling with tears. It's okay, Olivia, you're here now, and that's all that matters. We spend the next few hours talking, catching up on all the time we've lost. Olivia tells us about her own struggles with Frank, about how he's been trying to turn her against us for years. "But I see the truth now," she says, her voice filled with determination, "and I'm not going to let him control me anymore. I'm done being his pawn." Ethan nods, his eyes shining with pride. "We're in this together, Olivia. All of us. We'll stand up to him, and we'll win." As the sun sets outside our window, I feel a sense of peace wash over me. We've been through so much, Ethan and I, but we've come out stronger on the other side. And with Olivia by our side, I know that nothing can stop us now. We're a family, a real family, and we'll face whatever comes our way together. A few days later, we get another call from Frank. This time it's Olivia he's after, his voice desperate and pleading. "Olivia, sweetheart, you have to help me," he begs, his words tumbling out in a rush. "I'm in trouble, and I need a place to stay. You're my only hope." Olivia's face hardens, and she grips the phone tighter. "No, Dad, I'm not going to help you. Not after everything you've done." Frank's voice rises, his anger palpable even through the phone. "You ungrateful little brat. I raised you. I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me?" Olivia takes a deep breath, her eyes flashing with determination. "You didn't give me anything, Dad. You took from me, you manipulated me, you tried to turn me against my own brother, and I'm done letting you control my life." There's a long pause, and then Frank's voice comes through the speaker, low and menacing. "You'll regret this, Olivia. You and your brother and that bitch wife of his. You think you can just turn your back on me? You have no idea what I'm capable of." But Olivia doesn't flinch. "I know exactly what you're capable of, Dad, and that's why I'm saying no. You can't hurt me anymore, and you can't hurt Ethan and Zara either. We're done with you." She hangs up the phone, her hand shaking slightly as she sets it down. Ethan wraps an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "I'm so proud of you, Olivia," he says, his voice thick with emotion. "You did the right thing." Olivia nods, leaning into his embrace. "I couldn't have done it without you and Zara. You showed me what real love looks like, what a real family is supposed to be." I feel my own eyes fill with tears as I watch them, my heart swelling with love and pride. We've been through so much together, the three of us, but we've come out stronger on the other side. The next day, Ethan and I make a decision. We're going to use the money from the sale of the house to pay off Frank's debts, to free ourselves from his grip once and for all. We contact his creditors, explaining the situation and offering to settle his debts in full. It's not easy and it takes a big chunk out of our savings, but in the end, it's worth it. We meet with Frank one last time in a neutral location with Olivia by our side. He looks haggard, his eyes bloodshot and his clothes rumpled. "What do you want?" he asks, his voice hoarse and defeated. Ethan steps forward, his chin held high. "We're here to tell you that your debts have been paid, Dad. You're free and clear." Frank's eyes widen, and for a moment, I see a flicker of hope cross his face. But then, his expression hardens and he narrows his eyes. "What's the catch?" he asks, his voice dripping with suspicion. I step forward, my own voice steady and clear. "There is no catch, Frank. We paid off your debts because we wanted to be free of you, once and for all. But that freedom comes at a price. You're on your own now, and you'll have to find your own way in the world." Frank's face crumples, and for a moment, I almost feel sorry for him. But then I remember all the pain he's caused, all the lies he's told, and my sympathy vanishes. "You can't do this to me," he whispers, his voice breaking. "I'm your father, Ethan. You can't just abandon me." Ethan shakes his head, his eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and resolve. "You stopped being my father the moment you chose to lie to me, to manipulate me for your own gain. And now, you have to face the consequences of your actions." We turn to leave, our hearts heavy, but our heads held high. As we walk away, I hear Frank's voice behind us, a broken whisper that tears at my heart. "I'm sorry," he says, his words barely audible. "I'm so sorry." But it's too late for apologies, too late for forgiveness. We've made our choice, and we're not looking back. Months pass, and life goes on. Ethan and I settle into our new routine, our new life together. His nonprofit takes off, and I watch with pride as he pours his heart and soul into making a difference in the world. Olivia becomes a regular fixture in our lives, stopping by for dinner and movie nights, her laughter filling our home with warmth and joy. It's like we've always been this way, A family bound by love and trust, not by blood or obligation. But even as we move forward, the shadow of Frank still lingers. Ethan tries to hide it, but I can see the pain in his eyes whenever his father's name is mentioned, the guilt that still weighs heavy on his heart. One day, I come home from work to find Ethan sitting at the kitchen table, his head in his hands. I rush to his side, my heart pounding with worry. "What's wrong?" I ask, my voice trembling. "Is it your dad? Did something happen?" Ethan looks up at me, his eyes red-rimmed and bloodshot. "I talked to Olivia today. She said Dad's not doing well. He's living in some run-down apartment, barely getting by on Social Security. She thinks we should reach out to him, try to make amends." I feel a flare of anger at the mention of Frank, but I push it down, focusing on Ethan's pain. "What do you want to do?" I ask, my voice gentle. Ethan shakes his head, his eyes filling with tears. "I don't know, Zara. Part of me wants to help him, to be the bigger person, but another part of me is still so angry, so hurt by what he did. I don't know if I can forgive him." I take his hand in mine, squeezing it gently. "You don't have to forgive him, Ethan. What he did to you, to us, is unforgivable. But maybe you can find a way to let go of the anger, to move on with your life." Ethan nods, his jaw clenching with determination. "You're right. I need to let go, to focus on the future, not the past." We decide to reach out to Frank, to offer him a small monthly stipend to help with his expenses. It's not much, but it's a start, a way to ease the guilt that still weighs on Ethan's heart. But when we try to contact him, we're met with silence. Calls go unanswered, emails bounce back undeliverable. It's like Frank has disappeared, vanished into thin air. Weeks turn into months, and still, there's no word from him. Olivia tries to track him down, but even she comes up empty-handed. It's like he's gone, a ghost haunting the edges of our lives. And then one day, there's a knock at the door. I open it to find a man standing there, his face lined with age and sorrow. "I'm sorry to bother you," he says, his voice hesitant, "but I'm looking for Frank Johnson. I'm his landlord, and I haven't seen him in weeks. I was hoping you might know where he is." I feel a chill run down my spine at his words, a sense of dread settling in the pit of my stomach. "I'm sorry," I say, my voice shaking. "We haven't heard from Frank in months. Is everything okay?" The man shakes his head, his eyes filled with pity. "I'm afraid not. Frank's apartment was a mess when I went in there. It looks like he hasn't been taking care of himself. I found a bunch of empty bottles, some pills scattered on the floor. I think he might be in trouble." I nod, my heart heavy with sorrow. "Thank you for letting us know. We'll do what we can to find him, to get him the help he needs." But even as I say the words, I know it's too late. Frank is gone, lost to his own demons, his own mistakes, and all we can do is pick up the pieces to try to build a life without him. As I close the door, I feel a sense of sadness wash over me. But I also feel a sense of hope, a sense of possibility. We've been through so much, Ethan and I, but we've come out stronger on the other side. And whatever the future holds, I know we'll face it together, hand in hand, heart to heart. Because that's what family does. That's what love is all about. The phone rang just as I was about to sink into the couch with my favorite book. I glanced at the caller ID. Daniel. Sighing, I answered, "Hey, what's up?" "Laura, while you were away, I moved my parents' stuff in." Daniel's voice, casual and unapologetic, hit me like a thunderclap. "What do you mean?" My heart raced, and I sat upright, abandoning my book. "I told you we should have them live with us. They're here now." I felt the room spin. "Daniel, we never agreed on this. How could you decide this alone while I'm visiting Uncle John?" Daniel scoffed. "Come on, Laura, it's not a big deal. Besides, I figured you wouldn't mind." Mind? The audacity of his assumption left me speechless. This house, our home, was suddenly invaded by his unilateral decision. "Daniel, we need to talk about this." "No need, just stay there a bit longer. Honestly, it might be better if you don't come back at all." His words stung, a cold dismissal that echoed in the now silent room. I had always known Daniel was headstrong, but this blatant disregard for our partnership, for me, was a new low. "All right then, Daniel." "If that's what you want," I replied, my voice steady, belying the storm inside. There was a pause, a moment of uncertainty. "You're okay with this?" "Yes, Daniel. I guess it's time for me to move on anyway." The call ended abruptly, leaving me alone with my thoughts. For a moment, I let the hurt wash over me, the pain of being so easily discarded. But then, a flicker of resolve sparked within me. I remembered the plan Uncle John and I had discussed, a contingency for just such a betrayal. I reached for my phone again, my fingers deftly composing an email to a contact who could set our plan in motion. As I hit send, a sense of empowerment surged through me. Daniel thought he could easily upend my life, but I wasn't going to let him have the last word. The house we shared, it was more than just walls and a roof. It was the embodiment of my dreams, my efforts. Daniel might have believed he could just push me out, but he was in for a surprise. Uncle John's advice echoed in my mind. Always be 2 steps ahead, Laura. I started packing my things, each item a memory, a piece of the life I thought I had. But as I folded my clothes and gathered my belongings, I realized something. This wasn't the end. It was a new beginning. I was no longer the naive girl who fell for Daniel's charm. I was Laura, strong and capable, and I was about to show Daniel that underestimating me was his biggest mistake. I closed my suitcase, my heart steady and my mind clear. It was time to face what was coming, and I was ready. I left the house under the cover of dawn, the first light casting long shadows on the path that had once led me to a shared dream. As I drove away, my mind wandered back to the days before Daniel, before the disillusionment. I had always been a bit of a dreamer, finding solace in the quiet corners of life. Growing up in a modest home with loving parents, I learned early on the value of hard work and the joy of simple pleasures. My mother, a talented home cook, had instilled in me a love for nutrition and healthy living. Her sudden passing during my teenage years left a void, one that I filled by immersing myself in studies, eventually leading me to become a dietitian. College was a blur of textbooks and late-night study sessions, but it was at a college reunion that I met Daniel. He was charismatic, the life of the party, and when his eyes met mine, I felt a spark that I had never experienced before. Our whirlwind romance was like something out of a fairy tale, and before I knew it, I was walking down the aisle, promising to spend my life with him. Our early days of marriage were filled with laughter and love. Daniel, with his job in marketing, seemed to be the perfect counterpart to my more grounded nature. But as the years passed, the laughter faded, replaced by a growing sense of unease. Daniel's charm had masked a deeper, more unsettling trait, his obsession with status and wealth. His comments on my salary, once infrequent, became a constant refrain. "You'd think a dietitian would earn more," he'd say, a sneer in his voice. I brushed off these remarks, focusing instead on our son, Alex, who was growing into a thoughtful and intelligent young man. Alex, much like me, found his father's materialistic views troubling. He had ambitions of going to a top university, dreams that I wholeheartedly supported. Daniel, however, seemed more concerned with how Alex's choices would reflect on him rather than on what was best for our son. It was during one of our heated arguments about Alex's future that I realized how far Daniel and I had drifted apart. "He needs to aim for a prestigious college, Laura. It's about our family's reputation," Daniel insisted. "But it's Alex's future, Daniel. Shouldn't we support what he wants?" I countered, frustration evident in my voice. Daniel's dismissive attitude that night was a turning point for me. I knew then that something had to change, and so I found myself confiding in Uncle John, my mother's brother, and a wise confidant. It was he who helped me see the importance of standing up for myself and Alex. Together we devised a plan, a way to ensure that no matter what Daniel did, I would be able to protect my son and myself. As I drove towards Uncle John's house, the rising sun casting a warm glow over the horizon, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was not just a retreat. It was a step towards a future where I was no longer a bystander in my own life. It was time for Daniel to see that the quiet, unassuming Laura he thought he knew was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone who wouldn't back down. Uncle John's home was a sanctuary, a place where I could gather my thoughts and plan my next steps. Over cups of steaming coffee, we sat at his old oak table, plotting. Uncle John, with his years of experience in law and a keen understanding of human nature, was the perfect ally. "You need to think about the long game, Laura," he advised, his eyes serious. "Daniel thinks he's outsmarted you, but we'll turn the tables on him." We discussed various strategies considering legal and financial aspects. Uncle John suggested transferring certain assets to my name and documenting all of Daniel's actions should the situation escalate to legal proceedings. Throughout our discussions, my phone buzzed incessantly with messages from Daniel, ranging from dismissive to outright hostile. "You're overreacting, Laura. Just come back and we'll forget all this," read one. "You're being childish. Remember, I'm the one with the high-paying job," taunted another. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the plan. It wasn't just about getting back at Daniel. It was about securing a future for Alex and me. The thought of Alex brought a pang of guilt. He was preparing for his college entrance exams, and this upheaval was the last thing he needed. I called him, explaining as much as I could without burdening him further. "Mom, I get it. Dad's been different." Alex's voice was mature beyond his years. "Don't worry about me. I'm with Grandma and Grandpa. Focus on what you need to do." Hearing his words, I felt a mix of pride and sadness. My son was growing up in a broken home, yet he was showing more resilience and understanding than many adults. A few days turned into a week and then 2. Uncle John and I refined our strategy, ensuring every base was covered. We planned for the worst, but hoped for the best. The aim was to confront Daniel with a fait accompli, a situation where he had no choice but to acquiesce to our terms. Meanwhile, I kept up with work remotely, grateful for understanding colleagues and a flexible job. The normalcy of work was a welcome distraction, but every evening, as I sat in Uncle John's study, the reality of my situation sank in. Daniel, once the man I thought I would spend my life with, was now someone I barely recognized. His greed and selfishness had eroded the love I once felt, leaving in its wake a determination to protect what was rightfully mine, my dignity, my son's future, and my peace of mind. As I prepared to return to New York, I felt a sense of clarity. The path ahead would not be easy, but I was no longer the woman who left that house weeks ago. I was stronger, wiser, and ready to face whatever Daniel threw my way. The journey back to New York was a quiet one, filled with a mix of apprehension and resolve. The city's skyline, once a symbol of shared dreams and aspirations, now loomed like a battleground. As Uncle John drove, his steady presence was a reassuring reminder that I wasn't alone in this fight. The plan was simple, yet bold. We would confront Daniel with the reality of his actions and the consequences that awaited him. Uncle John had already laid the groundwork, consulting with legal experts and ensuring that everything was in place for a seamless execution. Upon arriving home, the sight of moving boxes and unfamiliar cars parked outside was jarring. Daniel's parents, unaware of the impending storm, greeted me with polite smiles. "Laura, it's good to have you back," Daniel's mother said, a hint of unease in her voice. Daniel, however, was nowhere to be seen. His absence was both a relief and a frustration. I needed to face him, to look him in the eye and let him know that his days of controlling our lives were over. The house felt different, as if it had lost its warmth. Daniel's parents had made themselves comfortable, but the atmosphere was tense, a silent acknowledgement of the unspoken conflict. I retreated to my room, the same room where I had packed my bags weeks ago. It felt like a lifetime had passed since then. I unpacked my suitcase, each item a symbol of the new life I was carving out for myself and Alex. That evening, as I sat at the dinner table with Daniel's parents, the conversation was strained. They spoke of Daniel in glowing terms, oblivious to his manipulative ways. I nodded and smiled, keeping my true feelings hidden. The time for revelations was not yet here. Later that night, Daniel finally returned. He was surprised to see me, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. "Laura, you're back," he said, his tone a mix of surprise and annoyance. "Yes, Daniel, we need to talk," I replied, my voice calm but firm. He scoffed. "What's there to talk about? You left, remember?" I stood my ground. "It's about the house, Daniel, and our future." Daniel laughed, a hollow sound that echoed in the empty room. "What about it? You think you can just come back and everything will be as it was?" No, Daniel, things will never be the same, but you need to understand something. This house, it's not just yours to decide on. His expression changed, a hint of worry creeping in. What do you mean? I took a deep breath, ready to lay out the reality he was about to face. This house, it's in my name too, and I've been talking to a lawyer. We have options, Daniel, and none of them look good for you. For a moment, Daniel was speechless. The confident, controlling man I had known was gone, replaced by someone who realized he was no longer in control. This is just the beginning, Daniel. You thought you could push me out, make decisions without me. But I'm not the same person you thought you could manipulate. I'm fighting back, for me and for Alex. Daniel's face hardened, the reality of the situation setting in. You can't do this, Laura. I won't let you. But I was resolute. It's already done, Daniel. You've made your choices, and now you have to live with them. As I left him standing there, a mix of anger and disbelief on his face, I knew that the hardest part was yet to come. But I was ready to reclaim my life, my dignity, and my son's future. The following days were a whirlwind of activity and tense exchanges. Daniel oscillated between anger, disbelief, and desperate attempts to regain control. But with Uncle John's guidance and my newfound resolve, I navigated each challenge with a clarity I never knew I possessed. Daniel's parents, caught in the middle, were a source of unexpected sympathy. His mother, particularly, seemed to sense the gravity of the situation. "Laura, I never realized things were this bad between you two," she confided one afternoon, her eyes filled with concern. "It's been building up for a while," I admitted, finding solace in her understanding. Our conversation was a reminder that Daniel's actions affected more than just us. As the day of reckoning approached, I prepared myself for the final confrontation. Uncle John had arranged for a meeting with Daniel, his parents, and our respective lawyers. The goal was to settle matters as amicably as possible, given the circumstances. The meeting was held in a neutral location, a stark conference room that mirrored the cold reality of our situation. Daniel was already there when I arrived, his posture rigid, his face a mask of defiance. "Let's just get this over with," he muttered as I took my seat opposite him. The lawyers laid out the facts. The house, purchased with contributions from both of our families, was legally co-owned. Daniel's unilateral decisions and his recent behavior had put him in a precarious legal position. As the reality of his situation dawned on him, Daniel's facade began to crumble. He looked at me, a mix of anger and desperation in his eyes. "Laura, please. We can work this out. Just come back home." But the home he spoke of no longer existed, not for me. "Daniel, you made your choices. Now I'm making mine. It's over." The negotiations were tense but straightforward. We agreed to sell the house and divide the proceeds. Daniel's parents would move to a smaller place, and I would start afresh, somewhere new, somewhere where the shadows of the past couldn't reach. As the meeting concluded, Daniel's mother approached me, her eyes moist with unshed tears. "I'm sorry, Laura. I'm sorry for everything." I hugged her, a gesture of mutual forgiveness and understanding. "Take care of yourself," I whispered. Leaving the conference room, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The battle was over, and though the road ahead was uncertain, I was free. Free from Daniel's control, free to build a new life for Alex and myself. The drive back to Uncle John's house was a quiet one. I looked out the window, the city passing by in a blur. I thought of Alex, of the bright future he had ahead of him, and of the new chapter I was about to begin. Uncle John broke the silence. "You did well, Laura. I'm proud of you. Thank you, Uncle John, for everything." As we drove on, the sun began to set, casting a warm golden light over the city. It felt like a promise of new beginnings and brighter days ahead. Months had passed since the day I walked away from that conference room, away from a life that was no longer mine. With each passing day, the sense of liberation and self-discovery grew stronger. I was rebuilding my life, piece by piece, on my own terms. The house sold quicker than we had anticipated. With my share of the proceeds, I bought a quaint apartment in a quiet neighborhood, a place where Alex and I could start anew. The walls were adorned with memories, both old and new, each telling the story of our journey. Alex had excelled in his exams, earning a place at his desired university. His resilience and determination were a source of immense pride. We often talked about his future, his dreams, and I saw in his eyes the same hope and ambition that had driven me through my darkest days. I found solace in my work, diving into community nutrition programs and workshops. My experiences had ignited a passion for helping others, for sharing the lessons I had learned about self-care and resilience. Occasionally, I heard news about Daniel through mutual acquaintances. He had moved into a smaller place. His lifestyle drastically changed. There was no joy in hearing of his struggles, only a quiet acknowledgement that the choices we make shape our lives. Uncle John remained a pillar of support, his wisdom and guidance a constant in my life. We often met for coffee, discussing everything from politics to philosophy. He had been more than just a mentor through my ordeal. He had become a true friend. As I sat in my new living room, the evening sun casting a warm glow through the window, I reflected on the journey I had been through. The pain, the betrayal, the fight for my rights, it had all led me to this moment, a moment of peace and contentment. I had learned that strength comes not from what we endure, but from how we rise above it. I had faced my fears, stood up for myself and my son, and in doing so, had found a sense of purpose and self-worth that no one could take away. The phone rang, jolting me from my thoughts. It was Alex, his voice bright and full of excitement. "Mom, I got an internship. It's exactly what I was hoping for." I smiled, my heart swelling with pride. "That's wonderful, Alex. I'm so proud of you." As we chatted, I realized this was what true happiness felt like. It wasn't about a perfect life. It was about a life lived with integrity, resilience, and love. The chapter with Daniel had closed, but a new one was just beginning. A chapter filled with hope, possibilities, and the promise of a future crafted by our own hands. And so, as the sun set, casting long shadows across the room, I knew that no matter what the future held, Alex and I would face it together, stronger and wiser than ever before.
The rain pelted against the church windows as I watched my sister Freya stand at our father's casket, dabbing her eyes with an embroidered handkerchief that probably cost more than most people's weekly grocery bill. My name is Olive, and this was the day my sister stole everything from me. Daddy would have wanted the estate in capable hands, Freya announced to our small gathering of family and close friends. Her voice carried that familiar patronizing tone I'd grown to despise. As the eldest, I'll ensure our family's legacy remains intact. I gripped the wooden pew until my knuckles turned white. Just yesterday, we'd buried our father, and already she was making her move. Mom sat beside me, her grief-stricken face buried in her hands, as she nodded along to everything Freya said. "Olive, dear." Freya's saccharine voice cut through my thoughts. "You understand, don't you? With your history of impulsive decisions, this is really for the best." The gathered mourners turned to look at me. I felt their stares burning into my skin. Remembering the rumors Freya had carefully cultivated about my supposed irresponsibility, that failed startup I'd attempted at 23, the time I'd traveled through Europe instead of immediately starting college, all twisted into weapons against me. "I understand perfectly," I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. "You've always had everything figured out, haven't you, Freya?" She smiled, that picture-perfect smile that had fooled everyone but me. "I'm so glad you see it my way. Mom's already signed over power of attorney to me. It's all very official." My head snapped toward Mom. "Is this true?" Mom finally looked up, her eyes red and puffy. "Freya knows what she's doing, honey. She's got the business degree, the connections. Your father would have wanted, Dad would have wanted us to share everything equally," I interrupted, standing up. "That's why he left it to both of us in his will." Freya's friend Callie stepped forward, placing a manicured hand on my shoulder. "Olive, sweetie, maybe you should step outside and get some air. Grief can make us say such irrational things." I shrugged her hand off and walked toward the church exit. As I pushed open the heavy wooden doors, I heard Freya's voice carry across the now silent church. You're better off without it, little sister. Trust me. That night, I sat in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by boxes I'd already packed. The estate had been in our family for generations. The mansion, the investments, the land. Dad had built it into something remarkable, and now Freya would run it all into the ground. A soft knock at my door made me look up. Mom stood there, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "I'm sorry, Olive," she whispered. "But Freya, she knows what she's doing. She's got everything planned out. She's manipulating you, Mom. Can't you see that? Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Mom's voice cracked. "Please, I can't handle any more conflict right now." I stood up and hugged her, breathing in her familiar lavender scent. "It's okay, Mom. I understand." And I did understand. Not just Mom's grief, but what I needed to do next. Freya thought she'd won, thought she'd pushed me aside like she always had. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. Again. Later that night, as I loaded the last box into my car, I heard heels clicking on the driveway behind me. "Running away again," Freya called out. "I knew you'd take the easy way out." I turned to face her, and for the first time in years, I felt completely calm. "No, Freya, I'm not running away. I'm moving forward." She laughed, the sound echoing in the empty driveway. "Forward to what? Another failed venture? Another disappointment?" "You know what's funny?" I smiled, closing my trunk. "You're so focused on what you've gained. You have no idea what you've just lost." "Lost?" she scoffed. "I've won everything." "Keep telling yourself that." I got into my car and started the engine. Through the window, I added, "And Freya, remember this moment. Remember exactly how it feels to think you've won. It'll make what comes next so much sweeter." As I drove away from my childhood home, I watched Freya's figure shrink in my rearview mirror. She thought she'd written the final chapter of our story. But she was wrong. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. And I was going to make sure she regretted every single moment of her victory. 6 months into my new life in the city, I found myself sitting across from Gregory in his downtown office, surrounded by financial reports and investment portfolios. The view of the skyline behind him seemed to mock my small-town roots, but I wasn't here to admire the scenery. "You're a quick study, Olive," Gregory said, adjusting his glasses as he reviewed my latest analysis. "Most people take years to grasp these concepts." I took a sip of my coffee, hiding my smile. Most people aren't trying to save their family legacy from a manipulative sister. Speaking of which, Gregory turned his computer screen toward me. "Have you seen the latest news about your family's company?" The headline made my stomach turn. "Carter Industries announces aggressive expansion plans." Below it was a photo of Freya, wearing her signature pearls and fake smile. "She's taking out loans she can't possibly repay," I muttered, scanning the article. "The estate's cash flow won't support this kind of expansion." "Exactly." Gregory leaned back in his chair. "She's playing a dangerous game. One wrong move and—" A knock at the door interrupted us. A tall man in a crisp suit entered, his presence immediately commanding attention. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, his eyes meeting mine. "I'm Russell O'Connor. I couldn't help overhearing. Did you say Carter Industries?" I straightened in my chair. "I did. I'm Olive." Recognition flickered across his face. "Olive Carter, I've been following your family's case, the inheritance dispute." "You could call it that," I replied carefully, though theft might be more accurate. Russell pulled up a chair, his interest piqued. "I'm a corporate lawyer. I've seen similar cases before. But yours, there's something not quite right about how it was handled." Gregory cleared his throat. "Russell's one of the best in the business, Olive. If anyone can help you build a case, it's him." I studied Russell's face, looking for any sign of the usual condescension I'd faced when telling my story. Instead, I found genuine concern and something else: determination. "Tell me everything," Russell said, pulling out a notepad. "Start with the power of attorney transfer." For the next hour, I laid out every detail, every manipulation Freya had orchestrated. Russell's pen moved rapidly across the page, occasionally stopping to ask pointed questions. "Your sister's making mistakes," he finally said, tapping his pen against the notepad. "Big ones. These expansion plans. They're reckless at best, fraudulent at worst." "Can we prove it?" I asked, trying to keep the desperation out of my voice. "Not yet, but we can start building a case. Gregory's been teaching you finance. That knowledge will be crucial." I glanced at my watch and stood up. "I have class in 20 minutes. Business Management 301. "You're taking classes too?" Russell looked impressed. "Every single one I can fit in," I replied, gathering my things. Freya's biggest argument was that I lacked the knowledge to run the estate. I'm making sure that when I face her again, she won't have any ammunition left. Russell stood as well, holding out his business card. "Let's meet next week. We'll need to start documenting everything." As I reached for the card, our fingers brushed briefly. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through me, and I quickly pulled away. "Thanks," I mumbled, shoving the card into my bag. "Both of you. I know this isn't exactly a normal client situation." Gregory waved off my thanks. "Normal is overrated. Besides, watching you take down your sister will be payment enough." Outside, the city bustled with its usual afternoon energy. As I waited for my ride share, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Freya's throwing a charity gala next month. Please come home for it. We miss you." I stared at the message, my throat tight. Below it was a photo of Mom and Freya at our family estate. Standing in front of the rose garden Dad had lovingly tended for years. The roses were wilting now, their care clearly neglected. Another text came through, this time from Russell. "Forgot to mention, those charity galas are perfect for gathering intel. Might be worth making an appearance." I smiled, typing back, "Already got my invitation." The rideshare pulled up, and as I settled into the back seat, I pulled out my tablet to review my class notes. Every formula I memorized, every concept I mastered, was another step closer to taking back what was mine. Freya thought she'd won by forcing me to leave, but she'd actually given me exactly what I needed: the freedom to become someone she'd never see coming. The sister she'd dismissed as irresponsible was gone. In her place was someone much more dangerous, someone with nothing left to lose and everything to gain. The country club's bathroom wasn't where I'd expected to find my first real breakthrough. But there I was, reapplying lipstick, when Callie stumbled in, clearly 3 glasses of champagne past her limit. "Olive," she caught herself on the marble counter. "I didn't know you'd be at the gala." I capped my lipstick, watching her in the mirror. "Mom invited me. Couldn't miss another one of Freya's famous charity events, could I?" Callie's perfectly made-up face crumpled slightly. "God, these events. Do you know how exhausting it is, keeping up with all the lies?" "Lies?" I turned to face her, keeping my voice casual. "What do you mean?" She glanced around the empty bathroom, lowering her voice. "The donations, the numbers, nothing adds up anymore. Freya keeps saying everything's fine, but..." She hiccuped. "Last week, she asked me to help her move some money around. Said it was normal business practice, but it felt wrong." Before I could press further, the bathroom door swung open. Freya stood there, her designer dress practically radiating artificial perfection. "Callie, darling." Freya's voice could have frozen hell over. "The mayor's asking for you." Callie straightened up, her moment of honesty vanishing behind a practiced smile. As she wobbled out, Freya turned to me. "Enjoying the party, little sister?" "Immensely," I replied, pulling out my phone. "Just documenting all the wonderful charitable work you're doing." Her eyes narrowed at my phone. "Still bitter, I see. You know, Mom's worried about you, living alone in the city, working yourself to death with all those classes." "Is she? Funny how she never mentions that in our weekly calls." Freya's perfect smile faltered for a split second. "You talk to Mom weekly?" "Oh, yes. We've gotten quite close lately. Amazing what honest communication can do for a relationship." Outside the bathroom, the string quartet started playing one of Dad's favorite songs. Freya's face softened for a moment, showing a glimpse of genuine emotion. Dad would have loved this, she said quietly. Would he? I challenged. Would he have loved watching you run his company into the ground, with reckless expansions and mismanaged funds? The softness vanished. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? The third quarter reports tell an interesting story, Freya. So do the whispers I'm hearing about bounced checks and delayed payments. She grabbed my arm, her manicured nails digging into my skin. Stay out of this, Olive. You gave up your right to question my decisions when you left. When I left, I yanked my arm free. You mean when you forced me out? Is everything okay in here? Mom's voice made us both jump. She stood in the doorway, concern etched on her face. Everything's fine, Mom, Freya said smoothly. Olive was just leaving, weren't you? I looked at Mom, seeing the conflict in her eyes. Actually, I'd love to stay and chat about the company's financial reports. Mom, did you know about the... Mom doesn't need to worry about boring financial details. Freya cut in sharply. She trusts me to handle everything. Mom wrung her hands. Freya's right, honey. She knows what she's doing. The expansion plans they're going well, aren't they, Freya? Of course they are, Freya assured her. Everything's perfect. I pulled out Russell's business card and held it out to Mom. When you're ready to know the truth, call this number. He's a lawyer who specializes in corporate fraud. That's enough. Freya snatched the card from my hand and tore it in half. Mom, go back to the party. I need to talk to my sister alone. But Mom didn't move. She stared at the torn card on the floor, then at Freya's flushed face, then at me. Fraud? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. What is she talking about, Freya? Nothing, Freya snapped. She's just trying to cause trouble, like always. I pulled another card from my purse. The truth will come out eventually, Freya. The only question is how much damage you'll do before it does. Leaving the card on the counter, I walked out of the bathroom, my heels clicking against the marble floor. Behind me, I heard Mom ask again, Freya, what is going on? My phone buzzed with a text from Russell. Got the documents you needed. Meet tomorrow? I smiled, typing back a quick yes as I made my way through the glittering crowd. Freya might have won the battle for Mom's trust months ago, but watching her perfect facade crack tonight told me everything I needed to know. The war was far from over, and her defenses were beginning to crumble. Russell's office was a maze of papers when I arrived the next morning. Gregory was already there, poring over financial statements with a furrowed brow. You're not going to believe what we found, Russell said, not even looking up from his computer. His tie was loosened, and coffee cups littered his desk. Your sister's been busy. I dropped into the chair beside him. Define busy. How about 3 shell companies, 2 unauthorized loans, and 1 very interesting offshore account? Gregory slid a folder across the desk. She's been siphoning money from the estate for months. My hand shook as I opened the folder. Can we prove it? Thanks to your drunk friend Callie last night, yes. Russell finally looked up, dark circles under his eyes, suggesting he'd been here all night. Those transactions she mentioned, they left a trail, a messy one. Speaking of messy, Gregory interrupted, holding up his phone. Your sister just announced another expansion project. She's burning through capital like it's unlimited. I scanned the announcement on his phone. This is insane. She's going to bankrupt the company at this rate. That's not the worst part, Russell said, turning his screen toward me. Look at the fine print on these loan documents. As I read, my blood ran cold. She used the estate as collateral, all of it. Everything, Russell confirmed. The house, the land, all of it. One default, and it's gone. But that's illegal, I protested. She needed my signature for that kind of decision. Russell's eyes lit up. Exactly. And here's where it gets interesting. He pulled out another document. Look at this signature. I leaned in, studying the paper. That's not my signature. She forged it? Bingo. Russell smiled for the first time that morning. This is our way in. Forgery, fraud, unauthorized use of assets. We've got her. Gregory cleared his throat. There's something else. Your mother called me this morning. My head snapped up. What? After last night, she started asking questions, real questions. She's worried, Olive, and she should be. My phone buzzed. A text from Freya. Family dinner tonight, non-negotiable. Don't make Mom more upset than you already have. Perfect timing, Russell said, reading over my shoulder. Go to dinner. Keep things civil. We need a few more days to get everything in order. Civil? I laughed bitterly. With Freya, think of it as reconnaissance, Gregory suggested. The more comfortable she feels, the more likely she is to slip up. That evening, I pulled up to our family estate. The gardens were even more neglected than before. Dad's beloved roses, almost completely dead now. Inside, the house felt different, colder somehow, despite the summer heat. Olive, Mom rushed to hug me. I'm so glad you came. Of course I came. I hugged her back, noticing how thin she felt. Where's Freya? In Dad's study. She practically lives in there now. I found Freya behind Dad's massive oak desk, surrounded by papers she hastily shoved into a drawer when I entered. Well, well, she said, leaning back. The prodigal sister returns. Cut the act, Freya. What's really going on with the company? She stood up, smoothing her skirt. Everything's fine, better than fine. We're expanding, growing. Drowning in debt, I finished. How long before the house of cards collapses? You always were dramatic. She walked around the desk. I've got everything under control. Like you had my signature under control. She froze. What? The loan documents, Freya. Did you really think no one would notice the forgery? For a split second, real fear flashed across her face before she masked it with a laugh. You can't prove anything. Can't I? I pulled out my phone, showing her a photo of the document. Funny thing about forgery. It leaves traces. Dinner's ready, Mom called from downstairs. Freya gripped the desk, knuckles white. What do you want? I want what's mine, what Dad wanted me to have. You'll never prove anything, she hissed. And even if you could, you'd destroy Mom in the process. Is that what you want? I headed for the door, pausing in the doorway. You know what's interesting about karma, Freya? It doesn't care about what we want. It only cares about what we deserve. As we sat down to dinner, I watched Freya's hands shake as she lifted her wine glass. She was scared now, and she should be, because tomorrow, Russell would file the first round of papers, and her carefully constructed world would begin to crumble. Mom passed the salad, oblivious to the tension. Isn't this nice? Both my girls home again? I smiled, taking the bowl. Yes, Mom, it's exactly where I need to be. The morning sun streamed through the estate's windows as I walked into Dad's study, where Freya was frantically shredding documents. She looked up, mascara smeared under her eyes. You actually did it, she snarled, waving a legal notice. You're suing me. Not just suing, I replied, closing the door behind me. The police are involved now. Fraud tends to interest them. She slammed the shredder off. You have no idea what you're doing. I built this company up. Built it up? I laughed. You've been destroying it. Look at this. I grabbed a financial report from her desk. 3 missed loan payments. 2 vendors threatening legal action. The expansion projects are hemorrhaging money. I can fix it. She grabbed the paper from my hands. I just need more time. Time for what? To forge more documents? Empty more accounts? The study door creaked open, and Mom stepped in. Neither of us had heard her approach. Is it true? Mom's voice was barely audible. The things they're saying on the news. Freya rushed to her. Mom, don't listen to them. It's all lies. Stop it, I snapped. Just stop lying. Show her the real numbers, Freya. Show her what you've done to Dad's legacy. Mom picked up one of the scattered papers, her hands trembling. These loans. You said they were small business loans. But this is, she looked up, tears in her eyes. You mortgaged everything? I had to. Freya's composure cracked. The initial expansions weren't working. I needed more capital. So you forged my signature? I stepped closer, emptied the trust accounts, created fake charity events to launder money. Charity events. Mom sank into Dad's old leather chair. The Children's Hospital Fund? Freya's face went pale. Mom, I can explain. Explain what? I pulled out my phone, showing them the evidence Russell had compiled. How you pocketed donations, how you've been living off stolen money while the company crumbles. I deserved it, Freya screamed, making us both jump. I was always the responsible one, the one who stayed. While you got to run around Europe, finding yourself, I was here, learning the business. Learning, I scoffed. You were schmoozing and playing politics. I actually studied finance, learned investment strategies. Girls, please, Mom's voice cracked. Your father, Dad would be ashamed, I said quietly. Of both of us. We should have worked together, Freya. That's what he wanted. Freya's laugh was hollow. Work together? You never wanted that. You just wanted your share without earning it. And what did you earn? I gestured around the study. The right to destroy everything he built? To steal from charities? To risk our family home? A knock at the door made us all turn. Russell stood there with 2 police officers. Ms. Freya. One officer stepped forward. We have some questions about certain financial discrepancies. Freya straightened her spine, her mask slipping back into place. My lawyers will handle any questions. Your lawyers dropped you this morning, Russell said, holding up his phone. Something about not wanting to be associated with fraud charges. Mom stood up suddenly. Wait, there must be something we can do. Some way to fix this without... It's too late, Mom, I said gently. The auditors are already here. The board members are calling for a full investigation. Freya's face contorted with rage. You planned this, all of it. The classes, the meetings with lawyers. You've been plotting against me this whole time. No, Freya. I've been preparing to save our family's company from you. The officers moved forward, but Freya held up a hand. Fine. You want the truth? Here it is. She turned to Mom. I took everything. The money, the donations, all of it. Because I could. Because no one was watching. Because perfect, responsible Freya would never do such things. Right? Mom covered her mouth, stifling a sob. And you know what else? Freya continued, her voice rising hysterically. Dad knew. He knew I wasn't ready to run the company. That's why he left it to both of us. But I couldn't stand it. Couldn't stand sharing with perfect little Olive, who always got away with everything. Ma'am, one officer said firmly, we need you to come with us. As they led Freya out, she turned back one last time. I hope you're happy, little sister. You've destroyed this family. No, Freya, I replied, watching her go. You did that all by yourself. Mom and I stood in silence as Freya's heels clicked down the hallway, each step echoing through the house like a final countdown. The empire she'd built on lies was crumbling, but beneath the rubble, our family's true legacy remained. Now came the hard part, rebuilding everything she'd torn down. The boardroom felt like a war zone. Angry investors, concerned board members, and a team of forensic accountants all talked over each other while I stood at the head of the table, my father's old position. The total losses are approaching $8 million, one accountant announced, sliding reports across the table. And that's just what we've uncovered so far. How did no one notice? Demanded Mr. Patterson, our longest-serving board member. Where were the oversight committees? Callie, sitting in the corner, raised her hand timidly. Freya had us all submit false reports. She said it was standard practice for tax purposes. And you believed her? Someone scoffed. Enough, I cut in. Pointing fingers won't solve anything. We need solutions. Russell stood up, straightening his tie. We've managed to freeze the offshore accounts. Some funds can be recovered. The real issue is the expansion projects. They're bleeding us dry, Gregory added, pulling up a spreadsheet on the projector. We need to shut them down immediately. But the contracts, someone started, are void, Russell interrupted. They were signed under fraudulent circumstances. We can legally terminate them. The door burst open, and Mom walked in, looking more determined than I'd seen her in months. I've just come from the bank. I'm selling my vacation house to help cover the immediate debts. Mom, no, I protested. You don't have to. Yes, I do, she said firmly. I let this happen. I trusted blindly when I should have asked questions. Let me help fix it. Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. That's admirable, but it won't be enough. We need— Actually, Gregory interrupted. I have some investors interested in helping. They've worked with Olive in some of her recent projects. They're impressed with her financial acumen. I felt all eyes turn to me. The company can be saved, I said, pulling up my own presentation. But we need to act fast and be transparent about everything. For the next hour, I laid out my plan. Cost-cutting measures, restructuring proposals, and most importantly, a complete overhaul of our financial oversight systems. As I spoke, I could see the tension in the room slowly shifting to cautious hope. This could work, Mr. Patterson finally said, but we'll need someone we trust in charge, someone who understands both the business and the family legacy. Before anyone could respond, Callie stood up. I need to say something. Her voice shook. There's more, about Freya. The room fell silent. Callie swallowed hard. She didn't just take company money. She's been blackmailing people, board members, investors, anyone who questioned her. She has files. Where? I demanded. Hidden drive in her personal laptop, password protected. But she pulled out a USB drive. I made a copy, last week, before everything. Russell took the drive. This could help with the criminal case. And explain why nobody stopped her sooner, Gregory added. My phone buzzed. A text from the prison, where Freya was being held, awaiting bail. Your perfect plan worked. Happy now, but remember, little sister, I know secrets too, about everyone, including you. I showed the message to Russell, who smiled grimly. Empty threats. She's done. Mrs. Carter, Mr. Patterson turned to Mom. As majority shareholder, you need to officially appoint a new CEO. Mom stood up, her voice steady. I think we all know who it should be. She turned to me. Your father always said you had his head for business. I should have listened. I'll need help, I said, looking around the room. From all of you. No more secrets, no more hidden agendas. You've got it. Gregory nodded. Where do we start? First, we come clean to everyone. Employees, shareholders, the public. Then we start rebuilding, project by project. As the meeting wrapped up, Mom pulled me aside. I found this in your father's study. She handed me an old envelope. It's dated the week before he died. Inside was a letter, Dad's familiar handwriting slightly shaky. My dear Olive, if you're reading this, things have probably gone wrong. I knew Freya wasn't ready, but I hoped— well, hope isn't enough in business. You have what it takes, the patience to learn, the wisdom to ask for help, and the strength to make hard decisions. The company is yours to save, if you choose to. Love, Dad. I folded the letter carefully as Russell approached. Ready for tomorrow's press conference? Ready, I nodded, tucking the letter into my jacket pocket. Time to tell the world exactly what happened here. And Freya? She'll face justice, I said, watching the last board members file out. But right now, we have a company to save and a legacy to rebuild. The courthouse buzzed with tension as Freya strode in. Designer suit, pristine, despite her circumstances. Her lawyer whispered something in her ear, but she waved him off, eyes fixed on me with burning intensity. All rise, the bailiff called out. I gripped Russell's hand under the table before letting go. He'd become more than just my lawyer over these past months, but today wasn't about us. Today was about justice. The state versus Freya on multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and forgery, the judge announced. How does the defendant plead? Freya stood, chin high. Not guilty, Your Honor. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Diana, approached the bench. Your Honor, the state will prove that the defendant systematically defrauded her family's company, embezzled charitable donations, and forged documents to cover her tracks. For hours, witness after witness took the stand. Callie, trembling but determined, detailed years of financial manipulation. Board members described Freya's threats and blackmail. Forensic accountants mapped out the complex web of fraud. Then it was my turn. Ms. Olive, Diana began. When did you first suspect your sister's activities? The day of our father's funeral, I replied, my voice steady, when she announced she was taking control of everything. Objection, Freya's lawyer called out. Relevance. Overruled, the judge said. Continue. I described the months of investigation, the discovery of forged documents, the offshore accounts. As I spoke, I watched Mom in the gallery, tears streaming down her face. And this document, Diana held up the loan agreement. Is this your signature? No, I said firmly. Freya forged it to secure loans using our family estate as collateral. Freya's lawyer cross-examined me aggressively, trying to paint me as a jealous sister out for revenge. But the evidence was too strong, the paper trail too clear. Then, unexpectedly, Freya stood up. I want to speak, she announced. I want to tell the truth. Her lawyer tried to stop her, but she shrugged him off and walked to the stand. The court fell silent. You want the truth? Freya's voice was razor sharp. The truth is, I did everything they're saying. Every single thing. But you know what? I did it because I could. Because everyone was so busy praising perfect little Olive, they never noticed what I was capable of. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Ms. Freya, the judge warned, you have the right to remain silent. I don't want to remain silent. She turned to face me directly. You think you've won? You think taking over the company makes you Dad's true heir? I took everything he built and turned it into my personal piggy bank. I destroyed his legacy, and that's something you can never undo. Order. The judge banged his gavel. Ms. Freya, return to your seat immediately. But Freya wasn't finished. You want to know the best part? Those charity events, the Children's Hospital Fund, all that money people donated to help sick kids. I spent it on vacations and designer clothes, and I'd do it again. The courtroom erupted in chaos. Mom collapsed into tears. Russell grabbed my hand as I started to rise, holding me back. Your Honor, Diana's voice cut through the noise. The state rests its case. The jury took less than 2 hours to reach a verdict. On all counts, the foreman announced, we find the defendant guilty. Freya stood stone-faced as the judge delivered her sentence. 15 years in prison, full restitution of stolen funds, and a lifetime ban from holding any corporate positions. As the bailiff led her away, she passed close to me. Congratulations, little sister. You've got everything you wanted. I hope you choke on it. No, Freya, I replied quietly. I never wanted this. I just wanted justice. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Russell fielded their questions while Mom and I slipped away to a quiet corner. I should have seen it, Mom whispered. All those years, I should have known. We all should have, I said, hugging her. But now we can rebuild, together. Gregory appeared through the crowd. The board's waiting. They want to make your position as CEO permanent. I looked at Mom, who nodded encouragingly. Go. Your father would be so proud. As we walked to the waiting car, Russell caught up with us. Dinner tonight? To celebrate. I smiled, feeling the weight of the past year finally lifting. Yes, but first, there's something I need to do. That evening, I stood in Dad's study, now my study, looking at his photograph on the wall. We did it, Dad. We saved your legacy. And I promise, I'll make it even stronger. The company would recover. The stolen money would be repaid. But more importantly, the truth had finally come out. Sometimes, karma doesn't just come for those who deserve it. It helps restore what was broken in the process. The autumn breeze rustled through Dad's rose garden, now restored to its former glory. I knelt beside the bushes, pruning shears in hand, just as he'd taught me. The quarterly reports are in, Russell called from the patio, tablet in hand. Profits are up 30%. The Children's Hospital Fund has been fully restored. And the expansion projects, I asked, snipping a wayward branch, all stabilized. Gregory's oversight team is keeping everything on track. The back door opened, and Mom emerged, carrying a tray of lemonade. She looked younger somehow. The weight of secrets finally lifted from her shoulders. Mail came, she said, handing me an envelope. From the prison. I recognized Freya's handwriting immediately. Unlike her previous letters, full of threats and accusations, this one felt different, lighter somehow. Dear Olive, I read aloud. I've had time to think in here. Too much time, probably. Yesterday, they let me watch the news coverage of the company's recovery. You did what I never could. You made it better, stronger. Dad would have. I paused, swallowing hard. Dad would have been proud. Russell sat beside me on the garden bench. Are you going to respond? I don't know, I admitted, folding the letter. Some wounds take longer to heal. Speaking of healing, Mom interjected with a knowing smile. Russell, are you staying for dinner? I'm making your favorite pot roast. He squeezed my hand. Wouldn't miss it. The sound of car tires on gravel drew our attention. Callie emerged from her vehicle, clutching a stack of papers. The last of the restitution paperwork, she announced, joining us in the garden. Every penny has been accounted for and returned to the charities. Thank you, Callie, I said sincerely, for everything. She shook her head. I should have spoken up sooner, but watching you rebuild everything, doing it the right way, it's taught me something about courage. Speaking of courage, Russell cleared his throat, suddenly looking nervous. There's something I've been meaning to ask you, Olive. Before he could continue, Gregory's car pulled up. He practically ran to the garden, waving a document. The board just unanimously approved your proposal, he exclaimed. The Scholarship Foundation for Business Ethics. They love it. I smiled, thinking of Dad. The Redemption Scholarship. For students who understand that success isn't just about profit margins. Your father would have loved that name, Mom said softly, wiping a tear. Actually, I stood up, addressing everyone. There's something else we need to discuss. I've been thinking about the company's future. Russell raised an eyebrow. More changes. More like evolution. We're not just going to be about business anymore. I want to create a mentorship program, helping young entrepreneurs learn ethical business practices. Show them that success and integrity aren't mutually exclusive. That's brilliant, Gregory nodded. A way to prevent another Freya situation. And speaking of prevention, Russell finally managed to pull out a small velvet box from his pocket. I was wondering if you'd be interested in a different kind of partnership. The garden fell silent. Mom's hands flew to her mouth. Callie squealed. Really? I laughed. You're doing this now, in the middle of a business discussion. Well, he grinned. You're always saying we should merge our assets. Oh my God, that was terrible, I groaned. But I was smiling. Yes, of course, yes. As Russell slipped the ring on my finger, I caught sight of Dad's roses, swaying in the breeze. They were blooming again, stronger than ever. So, Gregory cleared his throat, clearly emotional but trying to hide it, about that mentorship program. Right. I straightened up, still grinning. Let's go inside and discuss it. Mom's pot roast is waiting, and we've got work to do. As everyone headed inside, I lingered in the garden for a moment. The estate felt alive again, filled with purpose and hope. Freya's letter crinkled in my pocket, a reminder of how far we'd come and how far we still could go. Coming, Russell called from the patio. Yes, I said, taking one last look at the roses. You know what, Dad? I whispered to the garden. I think we did okay, better than okay. Inside, I could hear laughter and conversation. The sounds of family and future plans mingling together. The company wasn't just surviving anymore, it was thriving, guided by principles stronger than profit margins. And maybe someday, when the wounds had healed enough, there would even be room for forgiveness. But for now, there was dinner to eat, plans to make, and a future to build. The right way this time. After all, isn't that what karma is really about? Not just punishment, but restoration. Making things right again, one choice at a time.